Warning, the following podcast contains adult language, themes, and situations. Also, the film we're about to talk about is going to be spoiled thoroughly. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy this show.
The last time Nicolas Cage played a struggling screenwriter, it netted him Oscar Gold. 7 years later, he teamed up with one of the greatest writers working today and ended up with his second nomination while playing dual roles. That's right, Nick plays twins in this film and is absolutely brilliant as both parts. Join us as we break down the incredibly hilarious and heartbreaking meta masterpiece that is Adaptation.
Okay, let's run.
I'm like a prickly pear.
What do you say we cut the chit-chat? A-hole! Porker, how'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? Hey, have you ever been dragged to the sidewalk and being until you pissed blood?
Welcome to One Cage at a Time, the show where we break down every single Nicolas Cage movie, one film at a time. Here are your hosts, Patrick, Vince, and Nigel.
Charlie Kaufman is an overwhelmed Hollywood screenwriter tasked with writing a film adaptation of a book with hardly any plot or an ending, while dealing with sexual frustration, self-loathing, and a freeloading twin brother whose own aspirations of screenwriting lead the two of them on an adventure that ultimately leads to deceit, drugs, and murder.
Ladies and gentlemen, here are your stars.
Adaptation stars arguably the greatest actress of all time, 21-time Oscar nominee. That's right, 21, including a nomination for Best Supporting Actress in this film, Meryl Streep. A man who crushes it every time he's cast in a role, and the only star to walk away from this film with an Oscar, Chris Cooper. A guy who doesn't need you to remind him about the cover letter on his TPS reports, Ron Livingston. An Oscar-winning actress who disappears into every role she's given, Tilda Swinton. Legendary Emmy Award-winning actor who is currently crushing it on HBO's Succession, Brian Cox. Oscar-nominated actress that even the Joker finds beautiful, Maggie Gyllenhaal. Oscar winner and second best screenwriter alive, Nicolas Cage. And of course, Academy Award-winning actor and God's gift to cinema, Nicolas Kim Coppola, better known as Nicolas Cage.
Patrick, hit us with some stats, won't you?
Adaptation was released on December 6th, 2002. Budget of $19 million, and it grossed $32.8 million. So just, like broke even, I would say. That seems to be kind of a running theme with these more indie films. Mm-hmm. Because they don't have a massive budget. They just kind of either make back their budget or maybe double it. 32.8 on our list is actually pretty high.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to these smaller films like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is an absolute, as you saw in the starring, there's an absolute just pedigree of excellence in this film, top to bottom. Cast, crew, everybody is just amazing. Starting out with Spike Jonze, who is actually married to Nick's cousin, Sophia.
Really?
Sofia Coppola, who did Lost in Translation. She's done a lot of great films. Not a great actress, as we saw in Godfather 3, but she's an amazing director. Spike Jonze started out with skate videos, kind of worked with like Jason Lee back in the day, before Jason Lee broke into acting and stuff. And then he moved on to music videos, and he is responsible for some of the most classic music videos I've ever seen. So Buddy Holly by Weezer, which I feel like is a classic. Sabotage by the Beastie Boys. It's Oh So Quiet by Bjork, before she got into just yuling through all of her songs. Da Funk by Daft Punk. Praise You by Fatboy Slim, the one with Christopher Walken, like running on the walls and stuff. It's all about the Benjamins.
Or is that a different one?
I think Weapon of Choice is his too, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Wait, is
Weapon of Choice is the one with Christopher Walken.
Okay. Praise You was a big one, though, I remember. It's All About the Benjamins by Puff Daddy. Wonder Boy by Tenacious D. Just there's so many that are like, God, I remember that video. Oh, I remember that video. You know, it's just amazing. Really, if you look at it, it's almost like greatest hits of like music videos. Then he ended up breaking into film by doing Being John Malkovich. That was actually his first movie, which of course was also written by Charlie Kaufman. Then he's only done 4 movies total in his entire career. So since 2000 or I guess it would have been in the 90s when Being John Malkovich came out. I forget when that movie came out, but shortly before Adaptation. So Being John Malkovich, then he did Adaptation also with Kaufman, Where the Wild Things Are, which is the only movie that wasn't like critically acclaimed that he did, but I actually really liked it. A creepier version of the book, more of an adult take on it. And then Her, which...
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot he directed that.
Yeah, which is a weird like grouping of films for one director, but only 4. Has only directed 4 films, but all of them were either nominated for a Golden Globe or Oscar, including a Best Director nomination for Being John Malkovich. So every one of his films, he's done 4 films, and every single one of them has been either Oscar or Golden Globe nominated. I think all 3, aside from Where the Wild Things Are, have been Oscar nominated. Crazy. And Her cleaned up at the Oscars. This was, of course, written by Charlie Kaufman, who I feel like was introduced to the world through this movie because he wrote himself into the screenplay. He, of course, has done, I think it's like 4 of what they consider to be the top 100 scripts of all time.
Wow.
Being John Malkovich, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, has since started directing every film that he's done, starting with Schenectady, New York, which Robert Ebert called the best film of the decade for the 2010s. Like I said, just pedigree of excellence all the way down. It's funny. Every time I see Schenectady written out, I think there's this like pronunciation video that's like the first result on Google is like Sinadody Tody Chody. Sinanatody Dody Chody. Schenectady. There's no one else like Charlie Kaufman. I haven't seen anybody else. I like, if David Lynch is a singular voice and he's his own thing, like Charlie Kaufman is exactly like, there's nobody else working that's quite like him. It's always kind of a mind fuck every time you watch one of his movies, but in a good way. Shot by Lance Accord, who also did, of course, Being John Malkovich. Also shot Spike Jonze's other films. I don't think he did Her, but he did Where the Wild Things Are, and of course, Adaptation. Also shot Sofia Coppola's Lost in Translation, Marie Antoinette, and he was one of the main producers for this movie called The Robot and Frank, which is a brilliant indie film. If you haven't seen it, it's about a former jewel thief who's getting older, and his daughter decides that he needs company, so she gets him like one of those Osimo robots, and he ends up planning a jewel heist with the robot.
I thought it was The Robot and Frank.
Yeah, Robot and Frank.
Anne or and?
And. Yeah.
Okay, because I thought it was like The Robot and Frank, like somebody made an Anne Frank robot. It's like, wow, that is a very obscure premise for an indie movie.
It's an Anne Frank robot,
Our first
He's bumping into walls and like, shh.
Our first script.
God,
The Robot and Frank.
All right, I'm just going to move on from that. Edited by Eric Zumbrinen, I think is how you say his name. Best known for his work with Spike Jonze, including his music video work, but also worked on Mindhunter and unfortunately John Carter for Disney. Can't win them all.
Hey, I heard John Carter wasn't bad.
I've heard it's not bad. I've never watched it.
Like everybody on planet Earth, I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's pretty good.
Everybody, I think it did bad because it was like starring an unknown. At the time, he was pretty much unknown. And then, like, nobody knew that story, and like nobody knew what it was going to be. It just looked like a shitty version of The Mummy, and it had a humongous budget.
Yeah.
Bombed terrible.
It's the same problem they're having right now. Like, just gigantic budgets in movies that no one's going to see.
Yeah. By the way, the Flash is now slated to be the worst superhero bomb of all time.
Ooh.
Even at my most pessimistic, I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured it would break even, but... music by Carter Burwell, who is... we've talked about him previously on Raising Arizona. He's kind of the Coen brothers' go-to composer, but what's funny is he's been nominated for 3 Oscars, and none of them are the Coen brothers movies. It's kind of funny. He did the music for a movie called Carol. Then he did 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, which was a great film, very Coen Brothers-esque. And then The Banshees of Inisherin, which he just got an Oscar nomination. Well, just in our timeline, not like 6 months ago, 7 months ago, whatever. And he's also worked on all 4 of Spike Jonze's films. So he's kind of a go-to for both Spike Jonze and the Coen brothers. And yeah, kind of, there again, like pedigree of excellence. Like he's got a huge catalog of amazing scores. A lot of films that I've enjoyed over the years. Ratings, this movie got a 91%, 8.2 out of 10 on 213 reviews. Like we said, I don't think we've had even close to a 90% this season on any of the other films that we've done. But Wild at Heart, I think Wild at Heart might have been up there somewhere. Might have been a 90. I don't remember.
I don't think it was.
I don't think it was. I think that movie didn't do very well critically.
Really? Okay.
If I remember correctly, I can't remember.
Oh, I remember Ebert called it like masturbatory cinema or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that was. I think that had mixed reactions. Yeah.
Are you looking it up?
No, I'm looking at our list of movies.
Yeah, we haven't.
What away? Stolen, swept, everything.
Stolen didn't get a 90%.
That got a 96%, guys.
We had a real.
We've had a treasure
barrage of
trove
shit
this
season.
season.
This season was a shit fest.
It's a bit of a slog. Yeah, I think The Rock might have been the highest rated beside
Probably,
Adaptation.
yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Audience score on this was an 85%. So equally
That's
strong.
a lot higher than I thought, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of, well, I'll get to it in the cinema score, but like for the most part, everybody has rated it really, really good. So audience 85%, Metacritic 83%, which I think is the highest Metacritic score that we've ever seen on this show. IMDb is 7.7 out of 10, so you got to count for lowest common denominator. Some people probably didn't get it and probably were very confused throughout. But then the cinema score was a C. How in the fuck?
What? I didn't watch the trailer for it, so I don't know how this was.
It's kind of
billed
a
as
comedy, of course, you know, kind of more of like a really goofy slapstick comedy, you know, like I feel like the main trailer moment was that scene where he says, "I've written myself into my screenplay," and Donald's like, "It's kind of weird, isn't it?" And then it keeps going from there. But that's like kind of the pitch to the audience is that premise, which is pretty much the movie. But
Yeah.
I think it was painted as kind of a, I don't know, Being John Malkovich-esque funny movie, which Being John Malkovich is a thinker too, but this is much more of a thinker.
Yeah.
So maybe people went into it not expecting to have to think about it, and then they were like, I don't like this.
Where'd the face off go?
I can't really.
Where's
get
the
it.
face off?
I thought this was going to be like The Rock.
Did I sell cabbage in the lobby? Yeah, I don't get it. C? How do you give this movie a C? How did that many people in an audience give this movie a C? That's crazy to me.
I don't know.
That's like, I think that's the lowest cinema score we've ever seen, which is fucking crazy.
Yeah. I think up until now everything's been.
I think if a lot of those straight to video movies got cinema releases, we'd have lower scores. But
yes.
I think of all the theatrically released movies, this is the lowest.
Most of those get a little NA, you know.
Yeah.
I never would have expected that. When I was doing the research, I was like, okay, 91%, that makes sense. 85%, okay. And then I got to that and I was like, what?
Yeah, that seems way too harsh.
For crazy
this movie.
Yeah. That's what I'm just wondering, were people expecting something completely different?
I think so.
They got?
I think it had to have been something like that. But yeah, dumbfounding.
How about a Coppola quick facts?
A couple of quick facts here. This movie, of course, is based on Charlie Kaufman's struggle to adapt the best-selling book, The Orchid Thief, by Susan Orlean. It must have been just such a like, what the fuck did you do when she saw this, or like when she read the script? I'm sure
she agreed to it. Apparently, she was reluctant to sign off on this portrayal, but then saw.
I'll get to it here, but she had some very deep thoughts about.
Okay, good. I was going to ask if you
very specific
have
thoughts about this.
If you researched what she had to say.
Yeah, I got a couple quotes from Susan Orlean. Kaufman quickly got writer's block since the book lacked the dramatic structure needed for a movie. So he decided to write a screenplay about himself struggling to write a book adaptation, exaggerating many of the story elements and characters, and making up new ones, such as the non-existent twin brother Donald Kaufman.
Which I think is funny because don't they credit his brother as a writer?
Yeah. Yeah, he's just,
And he was on the nomination for Oscar too.
Yes, he was. They were going to share a trophy though. Apparently, when that happened, they didn't know that Donald Kaufman didn't exist.
Well, who the fuck would? Like, you don't think the Academy's going to look up all the screenwriters? Really? Like,
yeah, I guess because they did literally give a credit to a non-existent person,
right?
Knowing that the producers would reject the idea, he did not tell them about the new direction in which he was taking the story and simply handed in the finished script. Like, oh my God, the balls to do that. Although this move was supported by Spike Jonze, Kaufman himself believed that it would end his career.
Yeah.
He said, "The idea of how to write the film didn't come to me until quite late," which is exactly what happens in the movie. It was the only idea I had. I liked it, and I knew there was no way it would be approved if I pitched it that way. So I just wrote it and never told the people I was writing it for. I only told Spike Jonze as we were making Being John Malkovich, and he saw how frustrated I was. Had he said I was crazy, I don't know what I would have done. He also said, I really thought I was ending my career by turning that in. Oh my God, I can't even imagine, dude. I mean, I guess you have to assume the guy who wrote Being John Malkovich would give you something weird from The Orchid Thief. Like, who is like the guy who did Being John Malkovich? Have him write that. But I don't know. They had Kevin Smith do rewrites on like Coyote Ugly and shit. So,
and Superman Lives.
And Superman.
Actually, he did the first draft.
Yeah, he did the first draft.
There actually was a first draft already. He actually talks about it in his Evening With, where he was he read it and he was like, this is a piece of shit.
Okay.
And they kept bringing him in and like he kept telling the producers, like, this is a piece of shit. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Why the fuck would you write this?
And his problem
did your
was
kid write this?
he was writing it too much as a comic fan in an era when that wouldn't really fly for movies. So they eventually told him to fuck off.
Plus they wanted a giant robot spider.
He said that Tim Burton was the one who was like, no, I have a guy that writes all of my scripts, so I'm going to bring him in instead. And Kevin Smith was like, cool, I got paid. I don't, it's sad that I won't be part of this, but, whatever. Susan Orlean was strongly opposed to the making of the film when she saw the screenplay. She ended up reluctantly approving its production and was ultimately very impressed with the final result. In 2012, she stated, reading the screenplay was a complete shock. My first reaction was absolutely not. they had to get my permission to make the film. And I just said, no, are you kidding? This is going to ruin my career.
A lot of that going around.
This movie. Yeah.
I mean, they turned her into a fucking drug lord at the end and a murderer.
Hey, but at least they had Meryl Streep play her.
That's true. That's true. Very wisely, the producers didn't really pressure her. She said that they told me everybody else had agreed, and I somehow got emboldened. It was certainly scary to see the movie for the first time. It took a while for me to get over the idea that I had been insane to agree to do it, but I love the movie. Now she loves the movie.
I think up until the third act, they did a great job at
I mean,
telling her story. And then, yes,
like-
I could see why she was apprehensive.
once Charlie jacks off to her, that's when I'm like, okay. I think I would have been out too.
Yeah, I was like, that fat loser jerking it to me? No.
Which, it's funny, if you see Charlie Kaufman in real life, he's not really like fat. I mean, he is balding, but it's like, you know, he just has thin hair. They made him way more disgusting in this movie than he actually is.
I think Nick Cage made him more disgusting by putting that weight
and
on.
It's all his self-image, I think, too.
Yeah, or that.
He seems a little neurotic.
Yeah, 100%.
What? No.
Which actually, Susan Orlean was at first concerned that some people would think her portrayal in the film was accurate, but was then reminded how Charlie Kaufman portrays himself in the film. Which fat loser jerking off to random coffee shop girls and stuff. Very self-deprecating
character that we watched.
Yeah. I wasn't on board with Eddie King, but I was definitely on board with Charlie Kaufman.
I identify with Charlie Kaufman more than Eddie King.
Way more, yeah. I think that there's a lot of that in this movie. Is like you can definitely see your own like struggles through Charlie's character. Yeah. Charlie Kaufman was nominated for a Golden Globe with Donald Kaufman, and despite the latter being a fictional character. And then they were also both nominated for an Academy Award, and the Academy made it known that in the event of a victory, the two brothers would share one statue. I wonder if he would have won. It would have said Charlie and Donald Kaufman.
I probably would have,
yeah.
Which I'm sure would have been the proudest moment of his life.
Yeah. I just hope
that they share them.
Yeah. I just hope that had they won, he would have had Nick Cage come on stage with them.
Play Donald.
Just as Donald. That would have been amazing.
Distinctly different. It's I don't really in the Coppola Questions, I really struggled to try and find anything great, but like one of my big ones is like, is this just like two sides of the same person? Is this like the person that Charlie Kaufman actually wants to be and wishes he could be versus the guy he actually is? Like who exactly does Donald represent to him? Because at some point he had to make a conscious effort to like, I have to show this other side. Like, I don't know when in the writing process he was like, I'll just invent a twin brother.
Right.
There's a dichotomy within me while I'm writing, you know.
I think you're right. I think his twin is the person he wishes to be, because it's the complete opposite of him. He's charismatic. He's outgoing. He doesn't give a fuck what people think about him. He's willing to just throw himself into writing, even though he has no clue what the fuck he's doing.
Yeah.
I really
so positive.
Yeah, so positive.
I love how positive and like happy and upbeat he is all the time.
Yeah. So I think
Charlie's just a fucking neurotic in his own head asshole pretty much.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I think it was just him expressing the person that he wished to be through his twin brother.
Yeah. This film includes 6 Oscar winners as of 2015. Nicolas Cage, Meryl Streep, Chris Cooper, Tilda Swinton, Curtis Hanson, and Spike Jonze. And 4 Oscar nominees with Maggie Gyllenhaal, David O. Russell, Catherine Keener, and John Malkovich. Surprisingly, John Cusack not on that list.
I didn't recognize him without that do-rag.
I actually made a Sal from Arsenal joke in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's in Act 2.
Meryl Streep actually said that this screenplay was the best she has ever read. I don't know if that was as of 2002, but Meryl Streep has been in some shit. You go through her list of her filmography, like, it is crazy, and she thinks that this is the best thing she's ever read.
Wow.
About as high a praise as you can possibly get.
Yeah, especially coming from her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wow. Damn.
Nick Cage said that during the filming of the movie, he actually ignored all of his acting instincts to play Charlie Kaufman, and played the role exactly as director Spike Jonze asked him to. You know how we've talked many times how Nick likes to add his own flair and his own interpretations of the character and stuff. But apparently on this film, he just threw all that shit out. And it got him his second Oscar nomination.
Yeah. You could see moments where he was like ramping up to be cagey, and then it came down real quick.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense.
He's very subdued and really just melts into both of those characters. Yeah. Amazing performance from Cage in this. For this film, Nick Cage became the sixth person to receive an Oscar nomination for playing multiple characters in the same film. Charlie Chaplin, of course, played Adolf Hitler and the Tramp and the Great Dictator. Jose Ferrer for Moulin Rouge in 1952. Peter Sellers for Dr. Strangelove in 64. Lee Marvin in Cat Ballou in 65. Klaus Maria Brandauer for Out of Africa. Meryl.
I was like, yeah, with Meryl Streep.
Yep. It's just a joke that nobody will ever fucking get. Upright Citizens Brigade. Go watch it. God damn it. Of these six, Lee Marvin is the only one to win, which is kind of crazy. 6 different times it's happened and it's never won. Which, like, if you can play 2 characters very convincingly and kill it on both of them, that should be like an auto win, dude. I don't know.
Maybe
he lost
cheating.
out to the piano or the pianist.
Yeah.
Adrian Brody. Such a shame. I think if he would have been more in a supporting role in this film, I think he would have won. Because both Meryl Streep and Chris Cooper were nominated, and Chris Cooper won, which I feel like Chris Cooper is great, but I feel like Cage outshines him in this film.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like he outshines Meryl Streep, too, which is saying a lot. Nicolas Cage's brother, we've previously talked about Mark Coppola on Deadfall. He was the guy at the bar when Talia Shire is like working as the bartender. He actually stood in for Donald and Charlie in the scenes where they had to both be on screen, and you actually see it pretty well in the swamp when Charlie is like sleeping on Donald.
To get to play a second person.
I wondered if that was him.
And I saw in the credits that he was the stand-in.
Yeah. It's funny. Like, I just wonder what it would look like with
Chris Coppola.
Chris Coppola. Chris
Hanging out with
Coppola
Steven
looks
Seagal all of a
nothing
sudden?
like.
No.
He looks more like Steven Seagal than he looks like Nick Cage.
But Mark Coppola looks exactly like Nick Cage.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
They look very similar.
They're
nuts.
very, very like when you see him in Deadfall, you're kind of like, is that Nick Cage?
Wow, that hard Nick Cage.
Like young Nick Cage. What the hell? He apparently is a big New York City radio personality. I had no idea. He's on the radio a bunch. It's funny. I wonder, what those, like, if he's ever, I'm sure, constantly asked about Nick Cage, and I wonder what he has to say about his brother's career on the radio. Be interesting to hear Mark Coppola's interpretation of his career. Joaquin Phoenix auditioned for the role of John LaRoche and got very close to getting it. This movie would have been so different with Joaquin Phoenix in it. Probably would not have enjoyed it nearly as much. I I don't know why, but he just gives me the heebie-jeebies. I don't know what it is about that dude, but he just creeps me out.
It's like you're John Malkovich.
Yeah. It's, someday I feel like there's going to be something that's going to come out about Joaquin Phoenix, and I'm going to be like, see, I fucking told you. Guy's a weirdo. According to Spike Jonze, during one of their final meetings, Phoenix told him that he was wrong for the part and that it should go to someone else, and took himself out of the running. Oh, thank you, Joaquin. Chris Cooper eventually got the part and ended up winning an Oscar. But I don't think Joaquin Phoenix would have won a fucking Oscar for this.
No, I think he was smart removing himself because I just don't see him fitting that character.
Would not have fit. He just doesn't feel, he doesn't have that like country bumpkin vibe to him. And Chris Cooper does that really well. It's like, it's funny because it's like you have to play this line of like being a country bumpkin and a kind of a genius at the same time. Like he plays this really smart, but also really dumb at the same time.
And he nailed it.
Yeah, he's fucking perfect for this role. To portray John LaRoche, Chris Cooper grew out his hair, shed some weight, and used a prosthesis to create the illusion of a toothless mouth. I always kind of wondered how they did that, if they would do it as an effect, but I think it's just on top of his teeth and it's just sticking down, so the teeth are just coming down further.
Yeah.
And then there's the gap underneath, and he just has to be conscious of his lip.
There's a couple scenes where the lighting betrays the effect, and you can see that it's just blacked out.
Yeah.
It's a blacked out cap. But for the most part, he did a really good job at hiding it. It's just the angle and the lighting in a couple scenes. I don't think there's anything he could have done.
He apparently had requested numerous takes to get the right tone of the character. And Spike Jonze was very patient and allowed him to just kind of play with the character a lot, and gave him an Oscar. And the film is much better for it, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If that role hadn't been nailed, I think this film would have been less enjoyable, like you said.
I think that's what was, everybody's draw to The Orchid Thief, the book, in the first place, was John LaRoche.
It's got to be believable why somebody would become enamored with him and his lifestyle. And he does that perfect.
We'll talk about it in the breakdown, but I really feel like that moment when you realize how he lost his teeth and what happened to him is the moment you really start to understand him, and it's just done so beautifully.
All right, it's time to break down the film one scene at a time. Act 1. Why don't we set some shit up?
A film about a self-loathing screenwriter starts with the screenwriter loathing himself for a solid 2 minutes. Over a black screen, he says he doesn't have an original thought in his fat, bald head, and we follow a stream of consciousness where he laments that he's not happy because he keeps putting things off, is fat, needs to start jogging or rock climbing, needs to fall in love, needs to read more, learn Russian, learn Chinese, learn to play the oboe, be more confident that he needs to correct his brain chemistry, but he'll still be ugly since nothing he does will change that.
I'll be the screenwriter who knows Chinese. It's funny that he went to rock climbing. Maybe we'll start rock climbing.
Tartar sauce.
Tartar sauce. Mission Impossible too.
I'd like to put my face right in that.
We cut to the set of Being John Malkovich, where we see my favorite actor in a dress telling everyone on set to shut up during a scene where everyone in the restaurant all has John Malkovich's head.
It's your worst nightmare, right?
Yeah, it really was creeping me out watching the behind. It's like some found footage horror film because it's that grainy VHS behind the scenes. God, Malkovich everywhere, and then Malkovich is telling me to shut up.
Malkovich.
We see most of the crew for the film we're currently watching setting up a shot while screenwriter Charlie Kaufman watches on. In this reality, though, real Charlie Kaufman is instead played by Nicolas Cage, who of course also plays Charlie's twin brother Donald, who doesn't really exist. Everyone following so far?
It's funny, you see the director of photography that we just talked about, who also shot this film. It's so meta.
It made me wonder, did they shoot that film for that scene for this film, or was that actual behind the scenes footage from Being John Malkovich, and then they just added the shot of Kaufman kind of slinking off in the background?
I think they just added I don't think that I don't know. He did tell Spike Jonze about the idea while they were being John Malkovich. So maybe, but I know that the Nick Cage stuff was not.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe they filmed these other parts for.
I just wonder if that other part was legit behind the scenes footage that they filmed.
It might have been. I don't know. They have PAs just kind of wandering around filming a lot of the time.
Yeah. That's what, just don't do it in front of Christian Bale.
Fucking unprofessional, mate.
La-di-da-di-da.
No.
Charlie nervously makes his way outside where he narrates to himself that no one even knows who he is, despite being the guy who wrote the movie they're all working on. And he wonders how the hell he got there. Boy, he could really use a writer's strike or something to take a break.
He'd just torture himself the whole fucking time and try to figure out where he's going with the script anyway.
Yeah. Well, we cut to the entire history of evolution, from a molten ball of rock orbiting the sun to single-celled organisms to dinosaurs to a fox decaying to an ape standing upright and finally to a baby, presumably Charlie, being pulled out of a vagina. So we do see a real baby being born, but thankfully no one tried to crush it this time.
God damn it. That's mom and dad for all you that didn't.
I hope you got to add that breast in the little counter there.
I did. There's only one. Just a touch of a nipple.
Yeah. Yep.
There's a lot in this movie, and it's mostly because of LaRoche's porn site later on.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to count these, but it's like we set the precedent on Dog Eat Dog. He shows like a porn page, and there's just tons of nudity on that, so have to.
Mm-hmm. We cut to Charlie sweating his ass off in a restaurant across from Tilda Swinton, a.k.a. Valerie. He narrates to himself about thinking he has cancer, that he's sweating way too much, and that she thinks he's bald. But she cuts off his stream of consciousness by saying, I think you're great. I love this. Quick fact. The belly in Nicolas Cage's fat suit in this movie was stuffed with lentils and beads to simulate body fat jiggling. Cage sweated so much in the suit that the lentils sprouted.
Yeah.
Sure, you could eat them. I'm sure that adds to the nutrition somehow. Like, sprouted seeds or whatever.
Same as like putting them on a damp rag,
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
She says her agency loved the Malkovich script and says that she'd love to be inside his brain, to which he says, trust me, it's not fun, which based on his constant nonstop neurotic stream of consciousness, I'd say is absolutely true. We find out Charlie has been hired to write a film adaptation of a book called The Orchid Thief by an author named Susan Orlean, which is all true. What we're watching is the adaptation he came up with. Charlie nervously fidgets as he explains that he wants to remain true to the narrative of the book rather than to be artificially plot-driven. He says he doesn't want to ruin the book by making it a Hollywood thing like an orchid heist movie or changing the orchids into poppies to make it a movie about drug running. Valerie says her team thought maybe Susan and a character named John LaRoche could fall in love, but Charlie vehemently argues that he doesn't want to cram in sex or guns or car chases or characters learning profound lessons. Every single thing he says he doesn't want the movie adaptation to become ends up happening, by the way. We're not even 10 minutes in, and the groundwork has already been laid for the brilliance of this film. We cut to the New Yorker building in Manhattan, where we see the author of Orchid Thief, Susan Orlean, busy writing 3 years earlier about John LaRoche, and we listen to her narrate part of the book. She describes LaRoche as a deeply handsome man despite missing all his front teeth, and that she was introduced to him because of a story she wrote for the New Yorker about a white man who was caught stealing orchids with 3 Seminole Indians. We cut to a flashback within that flashback of the crime in question from 2 years earlier, where we see John LaRoche enlist the Native Americans to dig or cut up rare plants, since if he did it, it would be a crime, but having Native Americans do it is fine, since it's technically their right even though the plants are endangered.
Which I don't think is 100% true, but as he argues in the movie, it's like there's a gray area, and like they've argued it in court
to figure out.
Yeah. And they've never won. They've never won against the tribes. So
yeah, I know my uncle used to go fishing with natives in Alaska because he knew a lot of them from working up there, and they would hunt off of the boats And because they're the only people allowed to shoot off of the boats, so he shot a moose off the boat, but his friend is the one who actually shot it. Yeah.
Well, you just outed him publicly, so.
Oh,
redacted.
Statute of limitations. This was like 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Charles arrives at home to find his down on his luck twin brother lying on the ground, stretching his back, where Donald says he has a plan to move out of Charles's house by becoming a screenwriter himself. That'll work super quick. Just hit up Starbucks, write a screenplay, boom, you're a millionaire. That'll make tons of money, right? That's why all screenwriters are happy right now in Hollywood, and they got nothing to complain about.
Nothing to complain about.
I did like that, where he's like, I got an idea. What does he say? I got an idea to move out. He's like, is that getting a job? Is that going to help you move out?
No, I'm going to be a screenwriter. It's like the last thing you would want your loser brother to say to you. Oh, okay, cool. You going to sell for fucking Avon after that? Or?
I do like in this movie that they're both sort of like, I guess, supportive of each other. They're not like negative on each other. Like it would be really easy for Charlie to be really bitter of Donald's success, but I mean, he kind of is, but he's not like taking it out on him or anything. It's basically like, all right, well, despite everything I thought, Donald's just way better at me, which makes sense because I'm a loser. So
I feel like really that changes. He's like, I can't fucking figure this out, and everybody seems to love everything Donald does, so I'm just gonna embrace it and just go with it. And even though it's like he obviously is a terrible writer, but you know, Hollywood,
but I also took it as
up.
like that's what screenplays are, and he knows that. And he's just trying not to do that because he wants to be better. He wants to be more artistic.
Yeah,
but it's like he knows that shit is what'll sell scripts. He's just trying not to do it.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Can you imagine Charlie Kaufman writing like some fucking action thriller? I just can't even imagine. It'd be Christopher Nolan-esque.
Oh God.
Yeah. Oh, what? Way overblown and overrated.
Just so like complicated that you're like, what the fuck is happening now?
Yeah. I'm not a big Nolan fan.
Yeah. I've slipped. I used to be like back in the day, like Memento and what was the magician movie that he did?
Prestige.
Prestige. Yeah. Like I thought he was fucking a genius, but now I'm just realizing he's really just up his own ass all the time.
Yeah, and he makes movies that look good and have action in it, so
that are
think they're
overly complicated, and everybody thinks they're
Yeah.
like brilliant, but sometimes they're just kind of like, okay. We get it. Dream within a dream. All right. Gotcha.
Those people will then give a C to Adaptation for being too confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
I feel like with Nolan, people are like, I don't get it, but everybody told me it's brilliant. So
and they have British accents, so it's got to be sophisticated. I mean, I think they did. I couldn't hear half the dialogue, so I don't know what the fuck they're saying.
It's true.
Dunkirk was so disappointing. I know that's internet heresy to say that Dunkirk is not that good, but yeah.
Well, there's Full Frontal in Oppenheimer, so yeah,
so
you know.
We gotta see what's
that makes up for it.
We gotta see what's his face.
Cillian Murphy and Florence Pugh, which is what I'm in for.
She's old news.
Yeah, I just want men, naked men.
Yeah.
I rewatched 28 Days Later. I want just that opening scene.
Scarily gaunt Irishman dong.
I want to put that. I just want to see naked men on a loop.
That's the next short for this episode. Charles is disgusted at the thought of his jobless loser brother assuming he can do what Charles does for a living, especially when you realize Charles was nominated for an Oscar for his Being John Malkovich screenplay, presumably long after the events of this film, but still. Donald says he's taking a screenwriting seminar, and Charles says screenwriting seminars are bullshit, while looking at a news clipping of a violinist named Amelia, who is Charles' somewhat girlfriend or something.
I was confused about that. Like, exactly. Like, why is he looking at a news clipping of her and not?
I think she's his friend, and he wants it to be more. And I don't know.
Yeah. Like, he just saved the clipping. I don't know. It's like right under his pillow.
That's something he would
Probably
do.
jerking off to.
Yeah.
He is, yeah.
He jerked off to a dust jacket on a book.
That is true.
Donald says he'll pay back Charles for the seminar, and Charles rants that anyone who says that they have the answer to anything attracts only desperate losers, like, well, Donald. Meanwhile, Donald gets comfy stretching his back again while cutting off his brother over and over.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I'm listening. All right. I love that he's like making Charlie pay for it too.
Yeah, well, it's only $500.
I don't even have $500 for this.
He sleeps on like a folded cushion
Yeah,
downstairs.
I like that Charlie's house is like big and nice, but like his bedroom is just a mattress on the ground or whatever. And there's nothing. The house is like bare. There's like nothing in it.
I assume it's supposed to be temporary, but it's probably been very long. He's just trying to like make it seem like it's still temporary, even though he's like obviously there for the long haul.
Yeah. Donald says Robert McKee's principles will guide him to being a great writer after Charles says there are no rules when it comes to writing. Charles says he's writing a script about flowers, which has never been done. And Donald says, what about Flowers for Algernon? And Charles says, that's not a story about flowers. And then Donald's like, oh, I wouldn't know. I didn't watch it.
I don't know.
I didn't see it. Charles says those seminars are dangerous for writers since writing should be a journey into the unknown rather than just following a blueprint. Which, yes, is true, but also it's script writing. There are blueprints you should follow.
Yes.
I mean,
and honestly,
otherwise you end up with a C cinema score for your movie.
sometimes when you don't follow the blueprint, it can be very dangerous, or can take a movie that has promise and just makes it shit. Like, see every Adam Sandler movie since like Happy Gilmore.
Hey, come on.
They don't follow the hero's journey, whereas those first two movies did and were watchable.
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones.
Yeah. That's what I also like this. The movie's not overly cynical about that. It's basically like, if anything, Charlie is wrong by assuming you shouldn't follow those conventions. Like, do your own thing, be autistic. I want to make a movie where nothing happens because that's what life is like. Like, no, that's not what people were going to want to see. And even if it's realistic, like, why do it just for the sake of realism? Like,
yeah, who wants to watch that? You know? Really, The Orchid Thief on paper is not worth a movie. Like, I don't even know why they pitched it as a movie. Like, somebody was like, yeah, turn this into a movie.
That's just Hollywood. I think they'll just buy
what was
any
coming
book
out
that's a
around that time?
bestseller.
Because there were some movies like that where they were following just like a person, like a real person's journey that didn't really have any real excitement. I'm trying to remember, because it is reminiscent of a couple movies of that era that Hollywood loved, because it's like, oh, these are real people and real drama. So I can see Hollywood.
It's based on a true story, so
that.
obviously that was happening at that time.
Yeah,
and I think it's just Hollywood to just buy an option for any type of bestseller, just in case you can turn it into a movie. You can buy them for pennies, and, relatively speaking.
That one in
pay
particular,
a pittance to a writer to make a screenplay out of it, and then most of them don't even ever get made. Even if they get a completed screenplay, it just sits somewhere.
They just sit.
Just have the option.
I think also it's because in case a trend develops where they start showing certain movies like you're talking about, where it's following a real person's life or whatever. Well, if other studios are doing it, then we need to jump on and do it. So we need to have like a collection of options available to do that.
We've had this one sitting in the library for 10 years, and now feels like the time for it to come out.
Yeah. We cut to Charles awkwardly hanging out with Amelia, where Amelia says she's going to fix him as he smiles dotingly at her. She thinks doing the Orchid Thief will help him get out of his own head, which couldn't be farther from the truth. He drags everybody into his head. And that's where we are. She says he needs new clothes since he dresses worse than his unemployed brother, and he hesitates to make a move on her. We then cut to Charles desperately trying to start writing, but he quickly starts monologuing about everything else he should be doing besides writing. And again, we hear a stream of consciousness where he says, to begin, how to start. I'm hungry. I should get coffee. Coffee would help me think. Maybe I should write something first, then reward myself with coffee. Coffee and a muffin. Okay, so I need to establish the themes. Maybe a banana nut. That's a good muffin. I like eating pussy. I don't know why more guys don't like eating pussy. Maybe that's just black guys.
Whatever happened to the guy who tried to fly across the world?
Tartar sauce.
Tartar sauce. I love Cage's stream of consciousness moments in these movies that we watched. I wish it happened in every movie. I want to hear Eddie King's stream of consciousness.
I want to hear
God.
I want to hear Benjamin Franklin Gates' stream of consciousness when he's. I guess we do actually when
We
he
do.
streams
He
together.
pretty much says it out loud.
Non-related things.
Desk. Wood. Wooden gate. Olden wooden gates. Bill Gates. Bill Gates Foundation.
I know where
Coronavirus.
it is. Seattle.
Conspiracy.
Seattle. We gotta go to Seattle. The Emerald City.
Wizard of Oz.
We'll ride the ducks.
Flying monkeys.
We'll get it. We'll get in the duck boat. They hit it on the duck boat.
So just laughing like it's on the duck boat that crashed on the Aurora Bridge.
Oh,
and then
jeez.
the wreckage of it's in a junkyard and he has to break into a junkyard.
He has to scuba dive down to get it.
Oh, fuck.
Ugh.
You gotta put that scuba in everything.
Yeah, that's true. He's got a scuba.
I think we've written National Treasure 3.
Well, we're waiting for our money, Brockheimer.
We have to stop by the Sleepless in Seattle house.
Oh, it's actual real boat. Houseboat. They filmed on the water.
Beautiful view.
It's a beautiful view.
All right, move on. We cut to Susan Orlean writing The Orchid Thief, and she describes it's the dangerous history of orchid hunting and many crazy characters throughout history that preceded John LaRoche, including guys getting their heads bashed in, drowning, getting dysentery, etc. We see LaRoche in court after the whole stealing orchids for the help of Seminole Indians incident, and we see Susan arrive in the courtroom where she listens as John describes his history with horticulture and describes himself as probably the smartest person I know. Outside by his rape van, Susan stops LaRoche, and she asks if she can do an interview with him, and he is shocked and excited when she writes down that him saying the judge can go screw herself.
I love the way you say rape van.
We cut back to Charles writing, and he describes the scene we saw earlier of LaRoche stealing the orchids with the Seminoles, but he quickly decides to take a break, and we see him on another date with Amelia driving home after watching a performance. He drops her off, and she invites him in, but he George Costanzas the situation by saying he needs to get to bed since he has a lot of work to do the next day. We watch her expression change from flirty to disappointment as she realizes he's serious. He asks if she wants to go to an orchid show in Santa Barbara, and she decides not to since this doofus is never going to make a move on her.
Coffee isn't coffee. Coffee is sex.
She quickly excuses herself, and he self-loathes some more about what an idiot he is for not going inside. He says he should just go knock on her door and kiss her, but of course, he just drives off.
I'm going to do that right now.
We cut back to LaRoche and Susan 3 years earlier, where John tells her his van is a piece of shit, but when he hits the jackpot, he'll be able to buy himself an awesome car. We see that she's a bit conflicted.
Really starts out as just painted as an idiot.
Yeah.
This van's a piece of shit, but when I hit the jackpot, I'll buy myself an awesome car.
We see that she's a bit conflicted at getting into this toothless weirdo criminal's Florida man's rape van, but she decides anyway, and they find her later in a shallow grave near the Fakahatchee Strand.
Foreshadowing.
He says his whole life now is about finding a ghost orchid after pulling out into oncoming traffic, and she writes down that his van smells funny. He explains that he researched that as long as the Indians are the only ones touching the plants, no one can touch him, and he's the only one in the world who knows how to cultivate the ghost orchid. So she writes down that he has delusions of grandeur. We cut to Charlie reading Susan's book and hear Susan's voice saying orchids are the sexiest plants on earth. But he's interrupted by Donald laying on the floor saying he's pitching his screenplay in Robert McKee's seminar the next day. And Charlie makes fun of him since their mom thinks his idea is a combination of Silence of the Lambs and Psycho. Donald asks why Amelia doesn't come around anymore and eats a sandwich on the floor while smirking. It really feels like at this point that Donald doesn't exist. It's just a caricature of inside David's mind. But eventually we see him interacting with people, so we know he's a real, a real figurative person.
You mean Charlie's mind? You said David.
Yeah. Oh, Charlie. Yeah.
Back to the weatherman.
David Spitz.
All these characters. Yeah.
It's funny. It's a stream of consciousness. Probably like linked to Weatherman back.
Yeah.
Those synapses connected again.
We cut back to Susan at LaRoche's nursery where some Seminole guy gropes her hair and makes her very uncomfortable as he stares at her sexily. The guy almost starts crying and says, "I can see your sadness. It's lovely." And she says she's just tired.
I love that scene so much. It's so well done. And like Meryl Streep is so good. Like she's flattered but uncomfortable and and just weirded out by this guy.
He says he doesn't like to talk much since that's the Indian way when she asks to interview him. And then we cut to she and LaRoche at a flower show. LaRoche finds a ghost orchid and he's condescending to her as he describes a moth that pollinates the orchid by basically making love to it. Then the tone changes as he passionately says the flowers and insects show us how to live because they follow their hearts, and when they spot their soulmate flower, they don't let anything get in their way. You can tell Susan's suddenly a little smitten for this psycho because of how passionate he is, which is something she's missing from her life.
Yep.
We cut to Susan at a dinner party where all the guests make fun of LaRoche and his missing teeth, but she excuses herself to the bathroom where we can tell that she feels bad for making fun of him. We also see her conflicted at dinner where in narration she says that she wants to know what it feels like to care about something passionately, the allure of the ghost orchid as well as her desire to see one in person in the wild. We see her riding in LaRoche's van again and we find out John is basically a collector of things he becomes incredibly passionate about before abandoning them completely, including turtles, fossils, 19th century mirrors, and tropical fish. He tells a story about being obsessed with fish and then deciding one day, fuck fish, and that he'll never set foot in the ocean again. She can't understand why, since some part of that love must linger, and she says that she wishes she could move on from things the way John did. We see Charlie at a coffee shop reading Susan's book, and he has a playful exchange with a waitress who sees the book and says she loves orchids. He again fumbles for something clever to say to a cute girl, and we see a fantasy sequence of him at the flower show in Santa Barbara where he is with the waitress. She says flowers are so sexy, and they goofily kiss in the woods before she takes off her shirt, exposing her breasts, and we suddenly cut to Donald knocking on Charlie's door while he's masturbating.
I love that kiss. He's like so like childlike.
Yeah.
when she kisses him.
Yeah.
So good.
Donald just lets himself in and asks if Charlie wants to hear his screenplay pitch, and Charlie says,
What? You want to hear my pitch? Go away, goddammit.
Donald says he's just trying to do something with his life, and Charlie rolls over, which I guess is enough of an invitation for Donald to give him his pitch. Donald tells his
smells
brother,
like masturbation in here. Can I come in?
Go away,
naked
I'm
brother
baiting.
laying in bed, trying to sleep. Just spill some.
You want me to bring some Febreze in?
Donald tells his brother that in his movie there's a serial killer being hunted by a cop, and the killer is keeping a victim in his basement. But the twist is, all three of them are the same person.
Oh, man.
Charlie says the idea is cliche, and there's no way to actually write that story, since you can't have three versions of the same person in different places at the same time. And when he asks Donald how he plans on writing it, Donald says they can just use trick photography. Charles tries to explain his point, but gives up halfway through and says the idea is great, and it reminds him of the movie Dressed to Kill. Donald says, "Cool, I really like Dress to Kill," until the third act, denouement. And Charlie says, "That's not how it's pronounced."
Especially the Ouroboros thing. I don't know what that word means.
we see Charlie in the... I love that again, too. It's just like, Charlie knows all these technical things about writing and stuff, but it's like, it's practically useless. Like, Donald's the one who's actually being a success because he's just doing... He's passionate about it, and he's doing, he's writing a script that it's stupid, but it's what people want, and Charlie's
I feel like
the
that's
one
how the world is in general. Is like the people, a lot of times the people who do things big are not the most qualified, and they're not the best. They're just the ones who are confident enough to try. And I feel like that's kind of the lesson in this movie. It's like, just fucking try it, dude.
But I also like that it's not overly negative about it. Like, if anything, Charlie's the one who's wrong for not doing that. It's just being kind of a pathetic, self-indulgent wiener, as a different Nick Cage character would say.
It's funny how they all are just like all coming together. What it'll be like after 100 of these goddamn things.
It'll be insane. We'll just have all these Nick character cages living in our head. We see Charlie in the coffee shop again as he very awkwardly tries to ask the waitress he attempted to jack off to before he was rudely interrupted if she'd like to go with him to the flower show. She quickly shoots him down and seems disgusted that she gave him the impression that she was interested in him, and he apologizes after seeing the look on her face. Then she says, "Say goodbye to these, Michael." Arrested Development. Oh, I guess you can't ever go back to that coffee shop.
Yeah. I would never set foot in there again.
Yeah.
Damn it, I liked that key lime pie.
We cut to Charlie at the orchid show alone, where he compares orchids to women and how unique and beautiful they all are. And we see Susan watching her husband from another room with sadness in her eyes. We cut to her and LaRoche in his van again, where LaRoche calls his ex-wife a bitch and says he opened a nursery with her that took off, but when it became wildly popular, people came out of the woodwork to spend time with him, and he theorizes that they were lonely. Susan realizes that she's doing exactly that and sadly looks out the window. LaRoche explains that he loves plants because they're so mutable and that adaptation is a profound process. And that means you figured out how to thrive in the world.
Multiple meanings, you see.
Susan says it's easier for plants to adapt since they have no memory, but for a person, adapting is almost shameful since it's like running away.
Act 2. It's about time we had some conflict, wouldn't you say?
We see Charlie on the set of Being John Malkovich again, where he watches all of the principal stars of that movie, including Sal from Arsenal himself, John Cusack, which I didn't even recognize him because he wasn't wearing a do-rag. Cusack completely ignores Charlie when he waves at him. We see Donald.
This is definitely the way that Charlie sees himself.
Yeah, invisible.
Like, nobody even knows who the fuck I am. Why am I even here?
Yeah.
You must feel like that with a lot of scriptwriters that are hanging out on set, because it's like, people will just think you're another PA or something.
Mm-hmm. I think at this point, though, I mean, if you saw Charlie Kaufman on set, you'd be like, holy shit, that's Charlie Kaufman.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. We see Donald chatting it up with Maggie Gyllenhaal's character, Caroline, which pisses Charlie off since he's the writer of the film, but no one seems to like him since he has the people skills of a slug. we see Catherine Keener also completely ignore away from Charlie, and he scolds his brother for hitting on the makeup girl.
Like, why is Donald allowed to be there?
Because he's his guest, I guess.
Maybe he just people thought he was Charlie, and
he just wanders in.
I also love that scene too. He's like holding a coffee and like a biscuit or something in his hand the entire time, and it just looks. I don't know, the way that Nick holds it and with his posture and everything, it just looks so fucking goofy and pathetic. Like, this guy is just here for the free snacks.
Yeah.
Check out craft services, man.
You guys
I
ever
got a
watch
title for my movie.
Ever watched Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Yeah.
There's like that scene when Funkhauser comes and visits the Seinfeld set. And he's just there for the fucking food.
He's just there for the craft services. Doesn't he like load his pockets with M&Ms or some shit and pisses Larry off? Oh, fuck. Charlie tells Donald not to embarrass him since he has to work with these people who don't seem to know he exists. Donald asks Charlie to give him a cool way to kill people for his script, of course, not in like real life. And Charlie tells him to make the killer a literary professor who cuts off little chunks of his victims until they die and calls himself the deconstructionist. Donald says he likes the idea, and Charlie again shits on him by saying, "I was kidding." Donald says, "Oh, sorry, you got me," with a big grin on his face, but eventually asks if it's cool if he uses it anyways.
I love that he's just like, you can't even tell that Charlie's trying to insult him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that exchange so much. That might be my favorite brothers exchange in this. Sorry, you got me. But do you mind if I use it anyway?
It's so great because it's like, it's still, even that is just meta wrapped within itself, with meta commentary. Like, he just comes up with this idea off the top of his head and then admits that it's stupid, but then it's like, no, it's actually would work. It would work in a, you can see it in a Hollywood script.
Oh, yeah.
So the part of his brain that thinks it's cool is also is different from the part of his brain that's like, it's stupid, don't use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's probably a constant like conversation in his own head.
Yeah.
Like, I came up with a great idea. No, that's stupid. Fuck,
Yeah.
nobody will ever like that. All right, I'm taking it out. But see, think about like a writer like that who probably has come up with a million great ideas, but is just like fuck, so self-loathing and hating himself. He's just like, no, that won't ever work.
Yeah. I think it's clear to say these two are polar opposites. Totally different. Charlie's the ever negative, self-loathing asshole who thinks every bit of writing needs to be deeply profound and original, while Donald is always positive, loves everyone, and would be stoked to be the guy who wrote Con Air. God damn it. We see Donald and the makeup girl hanging out in Charlie's house while she reads his script and says it's really good. Meanwhile, Charlie stares at his typewriter in the other room, listening to his loser brother be better at everything than him, including picking up chicks and screenwriting at this point.
Then he throws Dave Chappelle out the airplane, lands on a car.
And lands on the car. This is hot. This is hot. And then, even though he's cuffed to the fire truck, he flies off the fire truck through a walkway into
His
a
arm
gravel
doesn't
pit.
rip off or anything.
His arm is totally attached.
There's lots of sparks. Sparks everywhere.
Lots of sparks. I like sparks. Face Off's my favorite movie.
Could eat a peach for hours.
We cut to Charlie walking around lonely with a beer in his hand at a party where Donald is telling Caroline, "You look really hot tonight, baby." And they start making out while Charlie tells him he's heading home. Donald tries to talk him into staying, then spots Amelia with another guy since she gave up on ever even getting to first base with the wet blanket, Charlie. She introduces Charlie to her boyfriend, Peter Griffin. I think his name was David. Then to the group, and Charlie is gutted. That dude did that when that guy walked in behind her. I did start laughing because I thought the same thing. I was like, this dude looks like Peter Griffin. She's got a very unique taste in men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think they put, I don't know, they didn't put like the most beautiful actress they could possibly find in that role, like most movies do.
Yeah. Makes it more believable.
Tried to make it more
she's like
believable.
Girl Next Door. She's like an average woman.
She's very cute, but she's like, not Maggie Gyllenhaal or
Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep.
Amelia asks how Charlie is, and he says, "You know me, a mess." She asks how the script is coming, and he says it's a disaster, and he doesn't know what he's doing. He quickly makes it awkward, saying she has her own stuff, and he doesn't want to bore her. Then he asks Donald if he's coming with him. Donald says he's staying at Caroline's tonight for a little push in the bush. That was so great. His little dance too.
Yeah.
A little push in the bush.
You'd see him doing the helicopter at home.
You spin me right round, baby. Right. Oh, fuck. Charlie walks away and Amelia seems sad to see him go, but can't wait for Peter Griffin to give her some push in her bush as well. We see Charlie in his room. We see Charlie in his room desperately trying to figure out how in the hell to write a movie about flowers, and he suddenly gets some inspiration that he should start at the beginning of life and follow the journey of evolution, an adaptation that unites every living creature. Get it? Adaptation.
I love it. It's just like, how much could you possibly overthink this?
Yeah.
Like, start at the creation of the universe and move forward.
He pulls out a tape recorder and basically describes the scene at the beginning of the film showing the origins of life on Earth. He gets really excited and seems to have finally broken through his writer's block. But of course, we follow that up by him sitting in the dark, looking miserable, listening to himself, obviously hating what he thought was a breakthrough. Donald walks in praising Robert McKee's screenwriting seminar and says he's a genius, just like Charlie. He says you must find originality within predetermined genres because no one has ever come up with a new genre since Fellini invented the mockumentary, and he asked Charlie what genre his Orchid book will be.
Mine's a thriller. What's yours going to be?
Charlie solemnly says,
You and I share the same DNA. Is there anything more lovely than that? What'd you say, bro?
God, such a fucking brilliant line.
That is, yeah. Yeah, that's a good one.
He doesn't even hear him. What?
Yeah, you're like, huh?
Probably best to not hear that.
Yeah, because I think that one would have broken Donald a little bit, as positive as he is.
Yeah.
We cut to LaRoche watching TV with his dad or something. I don't know. Where he gets a call from Susan Orlean. She says she thinks he's smarter than people think, and she asks what happened to his nursery. Shit's about to get real sad, folks. He says things were going pretty well until one day he was pulling out of a driveway with his mom, uncle, and wife without paying attention, and the car was hit by a truck. He says he killed his mom, uncle, lost his front teeth, and his wife ended up in a coma for 3 weeks.
It's so sad because it's like they're like congratulating him on his success as he's pulling out, and that's why he's not paying attention.
Yeah.
And then ends up killing them all. Well, aside from his wife.
Yeah. He says that when she regained consciousness, she divorced him, and we see Susan crying on the other end of the phone. She says she might have left her marriage too had she almost died, since it would have been a get out of jail free pass, I guess, to leave, and no one would judge you for it. Kind of sounds like she's incredibly happy in her own marriage here, right? Like, so stoked.
Good. I wish I could almost die so I could get out.
Like, you know, it's like they live in this world of like so much judgment and like worried about what everybody will think. And it's like, if you're really that unhappy in your marriage, just get out of it.
That's one
Though
thing.
at the same time, I feel like it might ruin her life because it would send everything into upheaval.
That's why she envies LaRoche, because he can just drop things and move on. She couldn't. So she needs reasons to move on to stuff. And so she fantasizes about having a near-death experience to give her a get-out-of marriage free pass.
Yeah.
Whereas LaRoche can just be like, fuck fish, and then have to go back one day.
Fuck hangers. That's actually the one thing I really do like about this movie is them talking about that, like how people are so hesitant to make changes in their lives because of the judgment they feel they'll get based off of it. Because we're so deeply rooted into what people think about us and their opinions that sometimes it paralyzes people to make decisions that will better them or make them happier. And I like that theme running throughout, and LaRoche kind of being like that clicking, like that moment where it clicks, like, oh, okay. She like, when he's unhappy with something or he doesn't like something, he just says fuck it, and she wants that.
It's the characters having profound experiences.
Yeah, I mean that's the great irony of it, is that it shows like there was a story in the Orchid Thief that could have been adapted.
Yes,
into
that's
a film,
another thing I like, is that you see this recurring. Like there are stories in this that he could have touched on, but because he wanted to tell something completely different and buck the trend, he torments himself by trying to make something out of, like, he's making nothing. He's trying to make
see
nothing
the forest for the
out
trees.
of something that's actually there. Yeah.
Yeah.
LaRoche says he judged his wife, but maybe he was being judged by God, since Hurricane Andrew destroyed his nursery not long after. LaRoche says it would have broken his heart to start another nursery. So when the Seminoles called, he jumped at the opportunity and wanted to do something amazing, like only sell endangered species, I guess.
Guess that's what he meant by that. Like,
yeah,
I just want to sell things that people can't find anywhere else.
Cultivate. No, he wants to cultivate the ghost orchid, right? He wants to actually grow it and sell it, so it doesn't have to be harvested out of the wild.
Yeah, they're extremely hard to grow.
Yeah. Regular orchids are. Yeah, I can't imagine these ones.
When she first gets in his van and he's talking to her and he asks her why he's doing what he's doing, his whole thing is that he wants to be able to grow them himself so they're no longer endangered. Yeah. And then it would stop people from trying to poach them. That's when she writes down.
Yeah, he's like a conservationist.
Yeah. So I think that's what he meant, is he had this opportunity now to use them to go get these orchids that he could then bring back and grow so people can enjoy them and not have to go try and poach them out of the swamps. We see Susan in a restaurant with Valerie from the beginning of the movie, where she tells Susan she loves the story about LaRoche, and Valerie asks if they can option her story into a film. Susan is blown away by the idea and says it's exciting.
But I don't know how the hell you're going to adapt this. It's crazy.
I bet she never thought in a million years this movie is what would come from that meeting.
Could you fucking imagine, like, you had that meeting and then
oh my God, I'm going to be played by Meryl Streep.
Oh my God, this is going to be awesome.
I'm a drug addict murderer.
This is not some fat guy who masturbates to women he just talks to.
He just made up a whole extra story about me.
Valerie says Susan doesn't need to worry about writing the screenplay. She probably should have actually worried about it, since they have writers. Since they have writers who could do it. And we cut to Charlie sitting in a mess of books, notes, and I think a bottle of his own urine, while trying to figure out how to adapt the book Susan wrote. Charlie gets a call from his agent who says it's been 13 weeks since Valerie gave him the job of writing the adaptation and is anxious to see a draft. We cut to another fantasy of Valerie reading Charlie's script while they're in bed together. And after finishing, she calls him a genius over and over before making love to him. I wonder how awkward that scene was. We cut back to see Charlie whacking it in bed. And after finishing, he reads a piece from his screenplay about one of the orchid hunters he mentioned during the sequence we saw of Susan describing the dangerous history of orchid hunting, having shit-stained trousers due to dysentery. I don't know, there's so many levels of meta to this movie.
It's just like watching him describe a scene that's already been in the movie, like while he's like writing the movie. Like it's like he's coming up with it as we're watching it.
Yeah. He realizes he's fucked since he has the weekend to finish the script. And next we see him cobbling together a bunch of random scenes that we've seen so far, complete with LaRoche calling himself a crazy white man. And we see Charlie wake up, this time not during masturbation, in a cold sweat.
One of the few times we see him wake up not jacking off.
Not jerking it. Not from jerking. We then cut to him in his agent's office after hearing Donald having fun with the makeup girl in the other room. Charlie's agent is played by the great Ron Livingston, who barely listens to Charlie rambling about how he has no idea how to write this movie, but instead ogles some chick and says,
See her? I fucked her up the ass.
He says he's kidding, then says maybe he can help him write the screenplay. And Charlie just kind of stares at him. Charlie,
he's only in like 2 scenes, but Ron Livingston just kills it.
he nails every scene he's in this movie. I'd fuck her up the ass. Charlie reads a review of Susan's book from a newspaper that says, "There's not nearly enough about LaRoche to fill a book, so Orlean digresses in long passages, blah, blah, blah. No narrative really unites these passages." Charlie says he can't structure the book into a movie, and his agent looks at another girl in the office and says,
Oh, man. I'd fuck her up the ass.
no wonder Lumberg was always riding this guy to get his work done. Yeah, I'm going to need you coming on the weekend.
His boss is Peter Lowe.
Simple. TPS.
Quick fact, Ron Livingston's character Marty Bowen was inspired by the real talent agent of the same name. Bowen was screenwriter Charlie Kaufman's agent, and despite Kaufman's reservations that his script for Being John Malkovich couldn't get sold, Bowen bet that he could and did.
I can't even imagine what he thought.
He's like,
Yeah.
Why,
really?
dude?
I tell you one story about fucking a chick in the ass, and you turn it into my whole character?
I believed in
I'd
you with
fuck
your
her in
other
the
script,
ass.
man.
Yeah, dude, I supported you. I got you where you are, and this is how you reward me?
It makes me wonder if there's any truth to that portrayal, or if he's just exaggerating and just using his agent to mirror what people think all Hollywood agents are like.
Yeah. But it is funny because, like, he's very competent.
Yeah.
It's just he's, like, kind of a dick.
Again, it's like, oh, who the hell's the wrong one here? If this guy's successful in his life and Charlie's
Yeah.
Charlie.
Yeah.
You know?
Charlie again desperately tries to get across that the book has no story, so Marty just says to make one up. Charlie says he doesn't want to do that this time, like on Being John Malkovich, because he's working with somebody else's material. He says he wanted to grow as a writer and do something simple and to show people how amazing flowers are. His agent says, "Are they amazing?" And Charlie looks at him unsure of himself and says, "I don't know. I think they are."
I think it's more questioning. Like,
It's more questioning. Like,
yeah, he's like,
I think they are.
I don't know. I think
Yeah.
they are. Even he doesn't know.
Yeah, he does it. He does
If they're
kind of shrug.
interestingly enough to make amazing, and he's writing the script.
Fuck, maybe they aren't. I don't know.
Charlie asks his agent to get him out of writing this movie, and Marty says he can't since Charlie has been stringing the execs along for months, and to bail now would be a terrible career move. Then Charlie exasperatedly, yeah. Then Charlie
very good.
exasperatedly slumps on the couch, and his agent asks, "Do you want me to fuck you up the ass?" By the way, this is the exact point in the film where he starts making shit up about LaRoche and Susan's relationship. So it does kind of sink in.
I mean, it's
Maybe I do have to make shit up.
it's so like, I feel like you could teach a class just on this movie.
Like what not to do in screenwriting.
It's just so complicated, and like all of these different parts like stringing together, and like the meta is just so meshed into the movie.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
I mean,
like you
I
just
watched-
sit down and break down this whole thing. It's crazy.
I watched this movie for an English class in college and had to write a paper on it. So, yeah, you can. My teacher was a big fan of it.
It's, I mean, some of the most brilliant writing that I think I've ever seen in film. I mean, just the balls, like I said, to fucking, this is what you came up with after reading that book. It's crazy.
That's kind of why they hired him, though. They hired, and I think they even say that at one point, like, you're gonna, like, you hired Charlie Kaufman to write a Charlie Kaufman movie. It's gonna be weird. It's gonna be different.
Yeah,
It's gonna be unexpected.
it's definitely that.
Mm-hmm.
It's starring him.
Charlie comes home to find his brother busily working on his own script, which is coming along amazingly. Unlike Charlie's, Donald rambles on about what Robert McKee said for him to do in his seminar. Charlie says, "You sound like you're in a cult." But Donald argues with his Oscar-nominated brother that Bob knows good writing techniques. Quick fact, in this scene, Charlie comes home and checks his mail. He's in front of a mirror and Donald is talking to him from behind. The reflection of Donald in the mirror is actually the real Charlie Kaufman. I wondered if that, I knew it wasn't Cage, and I wondered if they did throw Kaufman into this at any point, or if it was Nick's brother, because I couldn't really fucking tell.
Yeah, that's the real Charlie Kaufman.
That's so funny.
Out of focus, so you can't really tell, but you can tell that it's not Cage.
Yeah, you could definitely tell it's not Cage, just like we talked about in the swamp. You could tell that's not Nick leaning up.
Trick photography.
Yeah. Donald says he also printed a copy of McKee's 10 Commandments of writing and taped it over Charlie's work area, which prompts his brother to rip it off the wall and crumple it up while Donald watches from the hallway. Donald says, "You shouldn't have done that." And then laughs and says, "Because it's extremely helpful." I love that moment. It's almost like he's going to murder him.
That one is like, I need to know how to kill people for my script, man.
Yeah, or like he is part of a cult and he just disrespected his cult leader's work.
It's just like so disrespectful.
Yeah.
Like even if you're like, oh, this is fucking beneath me, you'd be like, all right, my brother tried to do something helpful for me.
Yeah,
like,
right.
You just crumple it up.
Yeah. Donald says he's going to have the characters in his screenplay sing "Happy Together" to break the tension. And Charlie says, "I haven't slept in a week, Donald. I need to go to bed." Donald says, "Oh, okay. Good night." While continuing to sit on Charlie's floor.
Okay. Good night.
We cut to Susan Orlean on the phone with LaRoche, and we see that his latest passion is porn. He says, "I'm training myself on the internet. It's fascinating. I'm doing pornography. It's amazing how much these suckers will pay for photographs of chicks." Susan says
I feel like it doesn't matter if they're fat or ugly or I don't remember what he says.
missing teeth.
Missing teeth.
I hate to say it, but like he knows how to read the trends, because I bet he would have made, or if that's real, like if LaRoche really did go down that path, which it's Florida, I believe it.
I think
he
so,
probably
yeah.
made some really good money selling pictures of naked women on the internet.
Late 90s, getting into the porn game. Yeah.
Probably cleaned up. This man's a thinker. Susan says that sounds good, then tells him she desperately wants to see a ghost orchid in the wild.
He describes, I'm doing porn now. She's like, oh, that sounds good. It's kind of, this is really like the first thing that just seems different.
Yeah.
This is Charlie starting to put in the seeds of there actually being a relationship between her and LaRoche.
Mm-hmm. Charlie reads a passage from Susan's book about how being passionate about something whittles the world down to a more manageable size. He says she has such sweet, sad insights that are so true, and then imagines Susan in his bed with him. And we again get to watch him tug one out. Yeah, there's a collective, ew, at that scene from me and Shadow. Afterwards, he tells Susan's picture in the book jacket that he doesn't know how to write a movie based on her book and is afraid he'll disappoint her. He says she's written a beautiful book and that he can't sleep. He's losing his hair and he's fat and repulsive. Sounds like what I say before I go to bed every night.
Fat and repulsive.
The voice of Susan tells him to whittle down the story and focus on one thing. She says to find the one thing he cares passionately about and write about that. Charlie gives a big smile, and we next see him in the kitchen dictating again, but this time it's all about Susan Orlean and how desperate she is to find love, even while sleeping next to her insensitive husband. He uses her line to open the script with, "I suppose I do have one unembarrassed passion. I want to know how it feels to care about something passionately." Donald and Caroline come into the kitchen after a precocious night of lovemaking.
Precocious.
Wow.
Raccoon. Raucous.
Raucous. Goddamn. Donald and Caroline come into the kitchen after a raucous night of lovemaking, and Charlie greets them cheerfully for a change. Donald says, "You seem chipper." Charlie says he finally knows where to go with the script. Caroline says it's like a brain factory in their house, since Donald's script about a guy who is the killer, detective, and victim at the same time is equally as brilliant as whatever Charlie's cooking up. You guys got such brains for knowing. Yeah, I kind of felt like they did her dirty with that. It's a brain factory in here. Anyways,
She's just trying to be supportive, you know?
Yeah, I know, but they just he couldn't have written her a nicer way of describing how intelligent they are.
I mean, maybe she thinks that Donald's fucking script is just as good as Being John Malkovich, which is the movie that she literally works on.
Yeah.
But, you know, she's the makeup girl, so maybe she didn't even read the script. She doesn't even know what the movie's about. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, could you imagine working on that movie not having read the script?
Yeah.
You'd be like, what the fuck is going on?
So everyone is John Malkovich? What?
Donald says he's adding a chase sequence into this movie, which will be the killer fleeing on horseback with the victim while the cop chases them on a motorcycle. And it's like a battle between motors and horses, like technology versus horses.
I love the delivery of that line is so fucking good.
And it's like a battle between motors and horses, like technology versus horse.
And then they like hold on it for long enough to where it's just hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Charlie asks if all the characters are still all one person, since they're all chasing each other somehow. And Caroline says, well, that's the big payoff. Rather than
so she is stupid.
Yeah. She would have given this movie a C. Rather than scoff at the idiotic shit like usual, Charlie instead says it sounds exciting, and Donald thanks his brother for finally saying something nice rather than say that's the dumbest shit he's ever heard. God damn it, this scene. Charlie goes to a restaurant to pick up food, and Valerie, the woman who commissioned him to write the screenplay, spots him and says that she's there with Susan Orlean. Valerie says Susan is dying to meet him, but he says he can't since it's hard to write about someone that you've already been writing about after you meet them.
And Jack awkwardly,
yeah. He awkwardly excuses himself and says he'd love to meet with Susan at a later date, and he runs out of the restaurant without his food. I'm glad you pointed that out too, because I was like, hey, he left his food.
Yeah. You think he went back for it?
Yeah. Well, because the next scene he's eating a sandwich or something. So I don't know.
I do like the waitress out.
The hostess was like, you left your food.
So
do you like orchids?
You like orchids?
I do love, like, this is one of my favorite scenes of the movie of Nick's performance, because his posture and like his body is just so fucking uncomfortable, and I thought he nailed, especially when he sees her and he's like trying to figure out like, should I leave, should I not leave, and he's just like doing like this weird kind of like movement back and forth.
He starts out like very confident and happy, and then as soon as he spots her, it just switches on a dime.
He melts instantly. Yeah, his physicality, like we talk about all the time, it's so underrated, and that was one of my favorite parts of his performance. It's just how he
and you can totally tell Donald and Charlie apart just from the way that he carries each character.
Yeah. I almost wonder if the fat suit that he has for Donald is actually thinner than the fat suit for Charlie, because he has more of a hunch and is more slumped over, and I think he was intentionally playing the character as more fat and slobbish than Donald, because Donald's more confident.
Mm-hmm. Donald actually stands up straight when Charlie hunches forward. Yeah,
so good, man.
Quick fact:
the fucking pianist, man. Come on. Adrian Brody was good, but Nick Cage was better. Come on.
Look, guys, I stand by this. That movie is not as good as everybody thinks it is. It was just one of those Hollywood movies where everybody has to suck each other off because of
I mean,
Holocaust
it's
story
very
and, like, the timeline it
important
took
stuff to talk about. Yes, but we
Yes.
had already done like 20 Holocaust movies in a row.
Exactly.
Do you think like when somebody's nominated and then they see that some other Holocaust movie got nominated for the same category, they're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, 100%.
We talked
Because
about extras on another episode, but it was the exact same thing that like, it was like just, I think it was, Kate Winslet's character was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
yeah, I'm going to win an Oscar for this for sure. Fucking Hollywood just eats this shit up.
Yeah, it's the truth. They do. Like, yeah, like that movie is not as good as everybody remembers it being. I think a lot of the hype and everything like built up this image in everyone's head and this memory of it.
Yeah.
I know. I'm sorry. Like his performance was good, right? It was good.
It was great. Yeah.
I don't think it was better than Cage in this movie, and I stand by that. Not just because we're huge Cage fans, but he played two different characters and actually played two different characters. I mean, they were so different, and he nailed it. And his like the physicality, like we'll get into all that shit later. But man, it really does validate his comments about Hollywood not liking him and not wanting to see him succeed.
Well, think about the fact that Pig didn't even get like
That's
on the
another
radar
one.
of the Academy. So,
But
but you know, it was like it's basically a pay to play to get into the
yes,
Oscars.
exactly. I was just about to
And
say that.
They like, you know, obviously didn't have any money to make Pig. Very small budget.
It took a long time for anybody to even really start talking about that movie. And now look at the director. Like the director's got a lot of positive buzz behind him as they've distanced themselves from Pig. I mean, he's directing the next A Quiet Place or Quiet Place, whatever the
Quiet Place 4, I don't know.
And I think he'll continue to get jobs and do really well. But man, it just kind of feels like that's a huge snub not to even bring it up, like not even to mention it around the Oscar time.
Didn't even get like a Golden Globe nomination. Nothing.
I think it only got international recognition. I want to say it got nominated for some international awards, but that's it.
I feel like we're critical enough on this show to understand the difference between like an Oscar worthy film and a film that's obviously not. And Pig was 100% worthy of the Oscar nomination for Cage.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. All right,
and a Best Picture. I thought it should have been a Best Picture nomination too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like we've had a lot of heavy hitters the last couple of years when it comes to really good movies.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think between all of the movies that we've done, which is like 42 movies at this point, I feel like only those two, Pig and Adaptation, I could see Cage getting an Oscar win for.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Maybe Raising Arizona, just, I don't know. If you were going quirky.
Yeah, comedy. Like if you're going after comedy, quirky comedy. Yeah, I agree. Quick fact, Charlie Kaufman never actually met Susan Orlean while writing the screenplay for the film. The first time he encountered her in person was over a year into production when Orlean visited the set during filming. And Nicolas Cage introduced her to Kaufman. That's funny. The first thing she said was, "You have no idea how embarrassed I am right now." To which Kaufman responded with, "Not as embarrassed as me," before running off set. The two did not meet for another year after that.
Wow.
He's exactly the character that we see in the movie.
I hope that's what
he
you
ran
realized.
off to masturbate.
He's in his trailer and Donald comes in. Donald, get out! I'm trying to nap.
Leave me alone, God damn it! It was actually Cage dressed as Donald.
Yeah, Cage shows up with a sandwich.
I just wanted to run some ideas by you.
I had some ideas on the character.
Oh, man. We see Charlie in his car where he goes back into full panic mode since he's pathetic and the only thing he's qualified to write about is himself and his own self-loathing, and it's clear that he has an epiphany. Cut to him at home with a tape recorder and he says, "We open on Charlie Kaufman, fat, old, bald, repulsive, sitting in a Hollywood restaurant across from Valerie Thomas, a lovely, statuesque film executive." He goes on to describe the scene we previously saw of him sweating his ass off in front of her, then literally describes himself speaking into his tape recorder as we watch Nicolas Cage play Charlie Kaufman, talking to the tape recorder, pretending to be Charlie Kaufman, saying the lines he just said into the tape recorder. My fucking brain is breaking at this point, guys. It's getting real meta.
So many layers.
Donald walks in on Charlie. Donald walks in on Charlie recounting jerking off to Susan's picture on the book jacket, playing back on the tape recorder. And Donald says his script is finished.
It's just like, oh shit. Stop this. He's like so excited, like writing it.
Yeah.
And then Donald walks in. Oh, fuck.
Kaufman, repugnant, ridiculous. Jerks off to the book jacket photo of Susan What do you want?
He seems more embarrassed then than he does when he's actually gets caught jerking off. Donald asked Charlie to show it to his I'd fuck her up the ass agent. Donald says his script is called The Three and thanks Charlie for his idea about the killer, but he changed it to the killer cutting off body parts and making the victim eat them.
Which is even worse because like he's the killer and
Yeah.
Donald says Caroline had this tattoo of a snake swallowing its own tail. Charlie cuts him off saying Ouroboros. So Donald says, I don't know what that means. So Charlie says the snake, it's called Ouroboros, to which Donald says, I don't think so. Donald says it's a great
he just keeps going. He's like, I don't think so. But really what happens is
Donald says it's a great twist because the killer is also eating himself since they're all one person.
So fucking dumb. Genius at the same time.
Yeah. I love the character of Donald.
Yeah.
He's so great in this movie. Charlie says, I'm insane. I'm Ouroboros. And Donald says, I don't know what that word means. Charlie says, I've written myself into my screenplay. And Donald says, that's kind of weird, huh? Charlie says it's self-indulgent, narcissistic,
Solipsistic.
Solipsistic. Solip.
Okay,
Right?
good enough.
Say the P. Yep.
Solipsistic and pathetic. This is gonna be another fucking Dostoevsky.
You got it pretty quick though.
Yeah.
Then he calls himself fat and pathetic since he's too timid to speak to the woman who wrote the book, and he sucks. Then Donald asks if he's in the script, and Charlie says he's going to New York to meet her.
Am I in the script?
So, yeah. It's so crazy when you stop and think about all this being in Charlie Kaufman's head as he's writing the script for this, as we see it. It's just Ouroboros. It just eats itself and circles back on itself.
Yeah. I mean, this is a very, very unconventional screenplay, but fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
And like just like a fucking master course in script writing.
It really is.
But at the same time, like this breaks every rule.
Oh, yeah.
And you shouldn't follow these writing conventions either.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I can see why your professor wanted you guys to watch this and break it down because it is. This is a master class in screenwriting.
Yeah, that class, I mean, changed the way I look at movies in general. Because before that, I don't know, I wasn't really into movies. Never really have been all that much. I mean, I am more now, but it was that like, oh, you can take them and actually look at them like you look at books or other literature or other works of art, which is a weird epiphany to have because it's like, duh. But
I had similar classes dealing specifically with sci-fi and horror, like two different classes. One was just focusing on sci-fi and the other one was focusing specifically on horror. And it was all about getting to what the author actually was talking about. And almost always it's about sex or, the male gaze and like, looking at Alien and like it's a penis. So the penis is a black rapist that's like coming and to kill the white woman. And like, it's just, there's so many layers to the movies if you really dial them back. And
yeah, Alien's a great one to do that too.
Yeah.
There's so much about like reproduction and motifs and sexual assault and yeah.
Yeah. So it's never just what you see on the surface. There's always another layer, even on the shitty movies. But the great movies do it so well that you don't even realize that that's what they're doing.
I can't remember what I was watching or listening to, but first I can't even remember who the fuck it was that said it. But they were talking about like every movie, every book, every story that's ever told always has one of three things: love, sex, and death. And they challenged everybody to go watch, read, and or whatever, and try to find a piece of media that does not have one of those themes in it, because that's what drives the human consciousness. And I was like, oh fuck yeah, like subconsciously I knew that, but when you say it like that, it's like, yeah, you look at everything, you break it down, and there's all those themes are always in there. And sometimes, like you said, like an Alien, it's not in your face, like you have to like really kind of look at it and think about it and analyze it, and then you find out, oh yeah, fuck yeah, like you said, it's about reproduction. And I like movies that make you think, and that's what I like about this movie is it forces you to kind of stop and actually analyze what the fuck's going on, because it's crazy.
And that might be why people didn't really love it in the cinema score, is like, I didn't want to think.
Yeah.
Where are the robots? Where's that Anne Frank robot? Donald says not to get mad at him for saying so, but Robert McKee is having a seminar in New York this weekend. So if he's stuck, he should drop by while Charlie gives him the fuck that look. We cut to Susan and John in his van, where she tells him about them wanting to make a movie out of his story. LaRoche asks, who's going to play me? And she says, probably that guy who shot Kevin Spacey in the head after realizing he was gay in American Beauty.
Not realizing that Kevin Spacey was gay.
Yeah,
but
like
the character,
the character of the general.
Hopefully that's not a foreshadowing for real life.
No. It was Chris Cooper's character realized he was gay.
He was gay. That's why he hated.
He's been
gays.
repressing himself so much. Yeah.
And he hated Kevin Spacey for making him realize that, and because he was in love with Kevin Spacey, and because he knew Kevin Spacey's a piece of shit,
and also gay. But those aren't related.
No.
God.
He just happens to be a gay guy who's a piece of shit.
Yes. Very big distinction between these things.
We see Susan and LaRoche in the swamp hunting for a ghost orchid, where she narrates that it's intoxicating to be around somebody so alive. Ultimately, though, she's left disappointed when LaRoche can't track down the elusive flower after hours of searching. They get lost, and John gets frustrated when he doesn't have all the answers for her, and eventually calls her a fucking leech that's attached herself to him, sucked him dry, and spit him out. Then says for her to get her own fucking life and her own fucking interests, and calls her a spoiled bitch.
Which just kind of comes out of nowhere. She doesn't even say anything to him.
Yeah.
And this apparently was part of the book, right? Because this is how the book ends, is she doesn't find the flower, and that's it. Kind of like she's left disappointed, but that's what life is like.
Right.
To me,
when
that
she
was
sees the true truth behind the character, all that veneer falls off. He's just some yokel.
I think there's a little bit more to it. I think it's more of him projecting his insecurities.
Yeah.
And,
that too.
And
to me, it was more like that shine's worn off. Like everything presented up to this point is like, he's an expert in his field. He's like a, idiot savant, whatever you want to call it. He's a genius. And this is like, no, I mean, he gets lost in this swamp that he's supposedly been to hundreds of times, and then just breaks down and calls her a fucking entitled bitch and swears off a bunch of stuff forever.
Right.
Yeah.
So because he's trying to impress her, and he fails to do so, and he can see and hear in her voice how disappointed she is. And then that, like you said, like that veil is gone. They are who they are, and he doesn't know how to handle his emotions, which is why he says fuck it to everything that he's passionate about. And so he just turns on a dime like that on her and just explodes on her.
Which, when you think about it, is interesting, because like that is a climax to a story.
It is.
It's just not a Hollywood climax. A climax to a Hollywood story. So
that's real
you can
life.
see why Charlie Kaufman had problems trying to take that idea and get that into a movie. Like, it's not going to fly, but he has to do it somehow. But he can't, ultimately.
She looks devastated and says life seemed to be filled with things that were just like the ghost's orchid. Wonderful to imagine, easy to fall in love with, but a little fantastic and fleeting and out of reach. They finally find the van, and Susan is filthy, exhausted, and ready to close the LaRoche chapter of her life for good.
So I'm guessing that's the actual end of that story.
Yeah, because he reads that part to McKee later on, and he's like, well, what comes after that?
Yeah, that's right.
That's not a movie.
That's what the story
you don't have a third act.
Yeah.
Was this dark?
Cut to a TV screen with just a bunch of garbled images on it and humming sounds.
Just screaming
Orlean had
in
a stroke
Arabic.
and then died. The end.
Then there's a grave. What?
Charlie arrives in New York, where he spots Susan in the elevator of the New Yorker building, but he's too chicken shit to talk to her. Marty, Charlie's agent, calls him in his hotel and asks if it's been helpful talking to Susan, and Charlie lies, saying it's been okay. Marty says Valerie is breathing down his neck about the script, and Charlie says, can't rush inspiration. Marty
I
then
just
says,
wonder like how much he actually has written at this point.
Right. Can you imagine being Marty? Like, fuck it. I'm getting nothing on Monday, aren't I?
God, this douchebag.
Yeah. I think he tells Donald when he asks Donald for help, like, all I have are a bunch of like scribbled on pages. Yeah. Like I've cut a bunch of shit that I've written.
Bunch of false starts and
a bunch of false starts. Yeah.
It's like a bunch of stuff we've seen in the movie, just those scenes.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty much.
In a cohesive narrative.
Yeah. Marty then says Donald's script, The Three, is fantastic and the best script he's read all year. Charlie has a mild panic attack, and Marty says he's going to sell it for a shitload and suggests Charlie bring Donald in to help him write the Orchid script. Marty says Donald is really goddamn amazing at structure, and Charlie hangs up on him. We see Charlie hit rock bottom, freaking out in his hotel room with notes strewn everywhere before heading to Robert McKee's lecture in New York. Charlie monologues in voiceover about what a pathetic loser he is, since he's looking for an easy answer / shortcut for his script. And just as he's about to get up to leave, McKee says, and God help you if you use voiceover in your work, my friends. God help you. It's flaccid, sloppy writing. Any idiot can use voiceover to explain the thoughts of a character. Quick fact, in his renowned screenwriter seminars, Robert McKee now makes note that he is not against the use of voiceover narration, despite what Charlie Kaufman says. His voiceover narration must add to the story, not describe what's already being seen on the screen. Otherwise, there's no reason for it. Robert McKee was the one who suggested Brian Cox to play him. If you get to cast anybody, that is a fucking perfect choice.
Think about like what the balls in that request.
Yeah. I want to be Brian Cox. I love Brian Cox.
Okay.
And his voice, man. His voice is so great and demanding, and
he's the only one who
you in.
Do justice to me.
He was so perfect for that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I watched this movie 17 years ago, and I only watched it once, and that Brian Cox's scenes like the only ones that I actually remember from like crystal clear. Like I still hear the delivery of them over however many years later. 17.
Yeah. Don't have any bloody use for it.
Yeah, specifically that one.
It's funny. I had seen this movie when it came out, and then I was in college. I was in a screenwriting class, and I had to read Story by Robert McKee, and I totally forgot that it was the same thing. So like when I watched Adaptation after I had finished college, I was like, oh fuck, that's that book that I read.
Yeah. I think about that whenever I'm watching a bad movie like Arsenal. Like what are you trying to tell me? Like, this is just shit happening. Like, I haven't got any bloody use for
fucking time.
Yeah.
If you missed the point of Arsenal, I'm sorry. The whole point is you'll do anything for your brother, even when he treats you like a piece of shit your whole life.
Yeah, even if you hate his script.
That. While watching Arsenal, which I thought of that. Like, what am I watching?
Yeah. Robert McKee's pretty brilliant. Definitely worth a read if you're even if you're just into story and structure and stuff. I don't even think you need to be into scripts and stuff, but it's just a really, really great writer.
Later during a Q&A period, Charlie asks, what if the writer is attempting to create a story where nothing much happens? More a reflection of the real world. And Brian Cox launches into a brilliant monologue about how asinine it is to say that nothing much happens in the world. He asks if Charlie is out of his fucking mind since people are murdered every day. There's genocide, war, corruption. Every day somewhere in the world, somebody sacrifices their life to save someone else. People find and lose love. A child watches their mother beaten to death on the steps of a church, etc., etc. Before saying,
if you can't find that stuff in life, then you, my friend, don't know crap about life. And why the fuck are you wasting my 2 precious hours with your movie? I don't have any use for it. I don't have any bloody use for it.
That was a great monologue.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's true. I think a lot of people need to hear that too. Like if you can't find things in life that bring you joy, or if you don't find life interesting, you got blinders on. Like you need to realize that and look around, because there's a lot happening in life. And I know it's easy to put fucking blinders on, especially with how crazy the news can be sometimes, but you got to take the good with the bad. Well, I guess put it this way. You got to take the bad with the good to really cherish and appreciate what's going on.
Yeah. It's like Bob Ross always said, like you have to be able to have the dark in order for the light to shine through.
Happy little accidents.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Charlie looks at him like a beaten puppy before slumping back into his chair after saying, okay, thanks.
Like just that powerful, commanding performance, and then it just ends with him like staring at him like, okay, thanks.
I wrote being John Malkovich.
Outside, Charlie waits for McKee and says, I'm the guy you yelled at this morning. Robert says, you have to be more specific. Charlie asks if they could talk, since what Bob said to him shook him to the bone, not just because of the implications on his script, but on his choices as a human. They head to a bar where Charlie reads Bob passages from Susan's book, and McKee wants to know how it ends, but Charlie explains that it has no ending. She never saw the ghost orchid, and he wanted to present it as it's written. McKee says, that's not a movie. You got to go back and put it in the drama. McKee
Which I feel like he did. Like, there's little things that it feels like he went back and added in the early part of the movie to set up this third act.
Yeah.
Or at least tease the threads that became the third act.
The third act, yeah. McKee tells him the secret is to have an amazing third act, since if you wow them in the end, you got to hit. You can have flaws, problems, but wow them in the end and you've got to hit. Find an ending. Don't cheat. And don't you dare bring in a Deus Ex Machina. Your characters must change, and the change must come from them. Do that and you'll be fine.
Which is like, just think about every movie we talked about where it's like, well, the third act just fucking fell apart and brings the whole movie down.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. If you stick the landing, you can forgive so much in the rest of the movie. Like, I feel like some of the movies that we've seen were really solid until the third act.
Yeah.
Every fucking movie by what's his face?
Michael Bay.
That
was just joking.
Schrader, Paul Schrader's third acts, at least in the Cage movies that we've talked about. I mean, he stuck the landing and bringing out the dead. I feel like
he stuck the landing. As much as we shit on Schrader, he stuck the landing and bringing out the dead. I really do feel like I don't know if that was him or Scorsese. Doesn't matter. The third act tied everything together and stuck the landing.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, I'd say it's him. He's the screenwriter or the script writer.
Scorsese can change things to make it work, or have him rewrite shit that he didn't like in the original draft. But it landed.
It's just Tom Sizemore just has a stroke, and we follow his consciousness. Can you go back?
Maybe instead of him stroking out, he just beats the shit out of an ambulance.
How about that? Beats the shit out of a homeless person. That seems like something you'd like to do. We'll make him black.
I'm on it.
Yeah. Fuck yeah,
you're
finally.
Talking my language. Charlie tearfully hugs him before McKee says, have you taken my course before? To which Charlie says, my brother did. And McKee says, Julius and God damn it. And Philip Epstein wrote Casablanca, which he calls the greatest screenplay ever. What an unfortunate last name.
Yeah.
Pretty common name. One guy kind of ruined it, you know?
Yeah. Nowadays, it's not a great last name to have.
Thankfully, Hitler was a made up name because it was like a mispronunciation when they immigrated into Germany.
Really?
Yeah. It wasn't his, I think Adolf's dad was the first one to have the Hitler name. And then after him, the whole rest of the bloodline just changed their name.
Kind of ruined Adolf, though.
Back to what it was.
Oh, yeah, Adolf.
And mustaches that are
and Charlie Chaplin stashes.
Yeah.
Act 3, The Resolution.
Charlie calls his brother from New York and Donald answers with, great writer's residence. Charlie congratulates his brother on the success of his screenplay, and Donald thanks his brother for all of his help. Charlie says he wasn't any help at all, which is kind of true. And Donald says he let him stay at his place, and Charlie's integrity inspired him to try in the first place. So he was an inspiration without knowing he was an inspiration. You let me sleep on your futon. Donald turns around and says, Catherine says she really wants to play Cassie, who is the victim in The Three. And Charlie says, Catherine Keener? Catherine Keener's in my house? Then we see Caroline and Catherine Keener playing Boggle. I love Donald's line there. It's like, yeah, we're playing Boggle. Charles asked Donald if he wants to come to New York and hang out with him, and even asked Donald if he'd come take a look at his script. And Donald is over the moon at the idea. And next thing we see is the two brothers in Charlie's hotel room, where Donald reads The Orchid Thief on the floor, of course, because of his back. Quick fact, when Charlie and Donald meet in New York City, Charlie asked Donald to help him finish the script. This marks the exact transition point where the movie switches from being Charlie's screenplay, an original film that consciously avoids cliches, to being Donald's screenplay, which shamelessly employs tired Hollywood tropes like sex, guns, stakeouts, car chases, and maudlin speeches like the one Donald delivers to Charlie in the swamp. Fucking brilliant, man. It's just so... I mean, like, he didn't have a third act. So this was his way of creating a Hollywood-style third act to his movie, was writing his fake twin to come in and finish it for him. Genius. And, like I said, the balls to turn this fucking thing in.
Yeah.
I can't even, the first reaction had to have been like, what the fuck is this? This is not The Orchid Thief. What are you talking about? Donald says the script kind of makes fun of me, huh? The script kind of makes fun of me, doesn't it? Charlie says he's sorry, and Donald says he doesn't mind since it's funny.
I love that Donald read the script, and Charlie wouldn't once read anything that Donald wrote. But
he immediately read it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Without hesitation, was just like, yes, I'll be on the next plane. He asked how the great Donald would end the script. I love the great Donald. And Donald says he thinks there's more behind the words in the book and that Susan is actually hiding something, reading into the subtext. There does seem to be, based on the first two acts, unless he went back and added that drama, that there is some more to her interactions with LaRoche, and she actually does find him charming and attractive in some way, at least. Yeah. She does call him deeply handsome, aside from the fact that he's missing his front teeth.
I don't know if you have this in your quick facts, but she's been asked time and time again if she ever did have a relationship with LaRoche. She says no. She's adamant that there was nothing, it was completely platonic. That was all just added into the film. So I don't know. I don't know if it's true or not, but it does. It
doesn't happen until this part of the movie where everything's made up.
It's the point where
it does make sense that she'd be telling the truth because the love story doesn't come into right now.
Yeah. Did you ever ride him while doing drugs? No, for the 50th time, no. He suggests going and talking to Susan, but Charlie says he's too scared. So Donald says he'll go in his place since she won't even know the difference, which is true. Charlie says Donald needs to be exactly like him and not be his asshole goofball self. And Donald says, I'm not an asshole. Like, no, what I mean is no flirting, no bad jokes, and don't laugh how you laugh. He's a real scumbag.
Yeah.
Donald promises not to laugh and says it's an honor that people will think that he's Charlie Kaufman. Then we cut to Donald laughing his ass off while telling bad jokes to Susan Orlean in her office, where he asks if she has kept in touch with LaRoche. Donald says he felt an attraction in the subtext, and Susan says their relationship was strictly reporter-subject, and intimacy might have evolved, and she was extremely interested in everything LaRoche had to say, but once the book ended, that is when their relationship ended as well, which I'm sure was actually what she probably said. She's kind of like, you could tell that she kind of thinks he's an idiot in this scene and like just wants to get out of this interview. I wonder how she would have reacted to the real Charlie Kaufman in that. Because I feel like somebody who writes for the New Yorker would see the difference between Donald and Charlie right off the bat. Donald thinks she's lying, then asks her, if you could have dinner with one historical personage, living or dead, who would it be? While giving her a goofy ass look. He's like, pen in his mouth. Susan says she'd have dinner with Einstein or Jesus. And back at the hotel, Donald says she's lying.
Just rolls her eyes.
Yeah.
Or Jesus,
like,
I guess.
What a stupid question.
Yeah, just imagine asking somebody who interviews people for a living that as your final question.
Donald tells Charlie she said everything right, too right. And Charlie says maybe it's because she was telling the truth. Then he asks if his brother embarrassed him, and Donald says, people who answer everything right are liars, and everyone says Jesus or Einstein. And Charlie asks, what do you mean, Jesus or Einstein? Why would you ask her that question? You know. Donald suggests they spy on Susan and then start singing Happy Together. Again, the meta just gets deeper and deeper the whole way through. That's what Donald wanted to add to his screenplay, and he's added it to this screenplay. He tries to get his brother to sing along, and Charlie is beside himself. Get it?
God damn it.
We cut to Donald watching Susan out a window in a building near her apartment. I originally thought it was the New Yorker building, but I'm pretty sure it's her apartment because her husband comes in. And like, why would her husband be at the New Yorker? He's watching with binoculars, and Charlie nervously stands by, keeping guard. Like, what is that building? Is that somebody's apartment building?
It's like they went to a neighboring apartment building.
Yeah,
and somehow
that's what I thought.
We see Susan crying in her office, and Donald spots a plane ticket and can somehow read it despite being in the adjacent building. This is where Donald's style really takes over.
Yeah, even like that. Like, why are they in this other building?
Yeah.
You don't even question it when you're watching it, but it's totally stuff that gets thrown into the third act of a thriller.
Yeah, exactly. The plane ticket that he can read with binoculars says she's heading to Miami the next day, and even has, like, you can read the time and everything. Donald theorizes it's to meet with LaRoche. Susan's husband enters, and she seems fidgety and weird, like she's hiding something. Back at the hotel, we see Charlie is reading Story by Robert McKee, while Donald is reading The Orchid Thief. They like completely switched sides. He's all on board with McKee's writing now. Donald asks if Charlie has checked out LaRoche's porn site, and on the front page is a topless photo of Susan. I wonder, do you think that was actually Meryl Streep, or do you think they got a body double?
Body double.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, I read that somewhere.
Oh, really? You looked it up?
Because I was like, that doesn't look real. It looks Photoshopped, but
yeah. Charlie is shocked, and the two of them decide to follow Susan to Florida. We see Susan in her bed next to her husband, accompanied by the narration, what I came to understand is that change is not a choice. Not for a species of plant and not for me. It happens, and you are different. Maybe the only distinction between the plant and me is that afterwards I lied about my change. I lied in my book. I pretended with my husband that everything was the same, but something happened in the swamp that day. It's true. I feel like exactly what the movie is talking about with adaptation happens to you in life, whether you want it to or not. Change happens, and it's like there's nothing you can really do to stop it, no matter how hard you try.
It's inevitable.
And it's what happens to Charlie.
Yes. Instead of ending the story with not finding the ghost orchid like in the actual book, they find it and she's not impressed. It's just a flower, which I think is, would probably be the real reaction.
Right.
It's just, but those things are incredibly hard to find, especially if you play Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah, I had flashbacks. That's fucking bullshit.
They are hard to find, though, like in real life, and it wouldn't be a shock that LaRoche wouldn't be able to find one, especially since he and the Seminoles were in there chopping out all of those endangered plants.
Yeah.
He cuts down the ghost orchid, and they head out of the swamp. In the van, LaRoche says his porn site is going to be big, and then admits that he and the Seminoles turned the plant into an hallucinogenic drug that they use as a ceremonial thing to get stoned. It's like he's trying to like make her feel better. And my porn site's going to be real big. Did I mention that we make drugs out of the thing?
Like you could hear Donald's voice coming in over the characters in this last. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah. Susan recalls the dude stroking her hair and seeing the sadness in her eyes from earlier. And it all makes sense now since that dude was obviously high as hell. LaRoche tries to convince her to try this orchid drug. But she says she's done with orchids the same way he was done with going into the ocean and fish. But back at the hotel, she says fuck it and decides to give an unknown Native American drug made from orchids in the swamp a little snort. Well, give it a shot. As apparently LaRoche sent the package to her hotel room.
Right. Not suspicious.
At
this
this
is the
point,
height of
it's
the anthrax thing I thought going on.
It's just so ridiculous, and that's exactly Donald. What Donald would write into this third act.
Yeah. Suspend your belief of reality.
He sends her a package of drugs, and she snorts it without knowing what it is, how much she should take, etc. It's ridiculous. She snorts a line of this green stuff and then starts tripping out while brushing her teeth. She then starts harmonizing with a dial tone, and when LaRoche calls her to find out if she tried the drugs that he sent over, she's extremely happy to talk to him. I'm very happy now. She puts her feet up in the air and then hugs her leg while saying she's very happy. She gets him to hum a dial tone so that she can harmonize with it, and once they do it, she says, "That's fucking amazing." Next, we see her on the Joe Rogan podcast giving medical advice. Oh, wait. They talk all night, and she confesses to being lonely, and he says no one liked him as a kid, but he knew one day he'd meet someone who would just understand him. It's kind of beautiful, this little love story that he fucking made up completely.
Right. It's funny because even that, it's like a mix of Donald and Charlie. Like Donald writes the stupid stuff that adds the drama and the action, and then Charlie's writing the profound things like a love story.
Yeah,
Donald wouldn't be able to write that shit.
It's just so many levels in this movie. It's incredible. We see the two of them making love in John's smelly rape van somewhere near the water in Florida, which is like hell. To me, sounds like a nightmare. Having sex with a toothless weirdo in a van in fucking Florida. The Florida part's probably the worst, but I'd rather be raped by a toothless guy than fucking be in Florida.
Think of how many people that was their last night on Earth.
Jesus.
He kind of looks like the Green River Killer just a little bit.
He does look like Gary Ridgway.
We see John make tons of the green orchid drug while Susan trips balls while staring at a flower nearby. She says she wishes she was an ant since they're so shiny, and LaRoche says she's shinier than any ant, to which she says, that's the sweetest thing anybody has ever said to me. So drugged out of their minds. We cut back to Donald and Charlie in the present watching Susan get picked up at the airport by LaRoche in his murder van, his Green River Killer van. Charlie is disappointed that Donald was right about her, while the two brothers tail them through the night to a house somewhere in suburbia. I wasn't really sure if it was supposed to be like outside of Miami or if it was just somewhere, because they drove for a long time.
They drove for a long time, yeah.
Donald hops out of the car to get a closer look, and Charlie says he should be the one to go because it's his... Yeah, he never really knows what to say there. I don't know if that was Donald's writing, but anyway, Donald says, "You're the man," and Charlie sneaks onto the property and where he sees LaRoche's big grow operation in a greenhouse in the backyard. He sees hundreds of the ghost orchids in the greenhouse, then hears LaRoche and Susan getting it on with one of my favorite lines. LaRoche saying, "I don't know what came over you," and Susan says, "You came all over me last time, as I recall." So good.
Gosh.
It's kind of like quiet and muted.
Yeah,
but it's
subtitles just picked
so
it up.
fucking funny. I wonder if that was improv by Meryl Streep or Chris Cooper.
I hope.
Charlie sees Susan snort the green powder, then ride LaRoche like Sean Archer's wife rode Castor Troy. But he's spotted by LaRoche through the window. She didn't know it was Castor Troy, you see. Face off. Charlie runs for it, but butt-naked LaRoche quickly catches him in the yard. LaRoche throws him inside their house, and then Susan recognizes him as the guy who's writing a movie about her book. LaRoche is excited to meet him since Charlie's adapting their book, and so he says, "Well, that's wild. It's nice to meet you." But Susan is less than thrilled since Charlie knows too much. LaRoche is cool with just letting Charlie go, but Susan wants to know why he followed her, and they both realize he saw what was in the greenhouse. He doesn't really know what's... Like, how would he know that there's a connection between those orchids and this green shit that she's snorting up? She asks
maybe it's just, it looks like a grow operation, so he could report it regardless.
I guess. But why? I mean, what trouble would he really get into for growing a bunch of orchids? She asks if he's going to write about this in his screenplay, and Charlie says, "I really don't know what this is," which is true. He has no fucking idea. She says he's lying and then comes to a slow, tearful realization that this will ruin her life unless they get rid of Charlie. Meryl Streep's really great in that.
Yeah.
That moment. She's okay at acting sometimes. She says we have to kill him, and LaRoche is shocked. They argue for a while, and Susan says she can't have the world knowing about them since I guess she doesn't want to be known as a drug addict who bangs toothless weirdos. Like, are you ashamed of me? She's like, "Oh, no." But I think it goes back to the marriage thing where it's like being found out as somebody who cheated and then being divorced is almost worse than death to her.
Yeah.
And her, like, clique of New York people, It's crazy how that works. I don't know. It's like this status thing in New York, and especially with these higher up socialites, to be divorced, I guess.
It's that judgment, yeah. It's that judgment.
Yeah. LaRoche says that they can't kill anyone, and she says, "Okay, then I'll do it myself." Meanwhile, Donald's outside and has been listening in on what's going on this entire time. Susan forces Charlie at gunpoint to drive to the Fakahatchee Strand while following LaRoche's van. They drive to a dead end, and Susan tells him to get out of the car. Charlie spots Donald hiding in the back seat, and before Susan can kill Charlie, Donald kicks open the door, knocking the gun out of Susan's hand. The brothers run for it in the pitch black, terrifying as hell Florida swamp, while LaRoche and Susan grab flashlights and another gun. Things get real intense as Charlie and Donald take cover from their would-be killers hiding behind a fallen tree just feet from where LaRoche and Susan are looking for them. Susan, this seems like Charlie just adding a little thing to it. Susan says she didn't get a good look, and all she could tell was that the other guy was fat.
Yeah, Donald wouldn't write that. No, it's too mean.
Yeah. Charlie starts freaking out, saying they're going to find them, but Donald says he doesn't think that they will. Always the optimist. Even in this scene. Mm-hmm. Well, we'll get to it, but yeah. Charlie says, I don't want to die, Donald. I've wasted my life. And then he goes on to say, I admire you, Donald, you know. I spent my whole life paralyzed, worrying about what people think, but you're oblivious. Donald says, I'm not oblivious. And Charlie recounts a story from high school when Donald flirted with a popular girl named Sarah, and when he walked away, she and her friends all started making fun of him, and it was like they were laughing at Charlie too. Which I kind of wonder, like, you think that was autobiographical? Was there like a time when Charlie tried to flirt with some cute girl, and then he found out that they all made fun of him?
Or just imagine they did.
Yeah. Which
it kind of mirrors what happened with the waitress.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, she like looks at him, and then the other waitress like stares at him. So embarrassing, like, and sad. Mm-hmm. He says Donald never knew and seems so happy afterwards. But Donald says, I knew, I heard them. Charlie asks why he was so happy still, and Donald says, I loved Sarah, Charles. It was mine, that love. I owned it. Even Sarah didn't have the right to take it away. I can love whoever I want. Charlie says, but she thought you were pathetic. And Donald laughs and says, that was her business, not mine. You are what you love, not what loves you. That's what I decided a long time ago. God, I wish we could all live like Donald.
Shit.
Yeah.
It'd be such a blessing if we could just be able to turn it on like that, like turn off that embarrassment or that self-doubt and worry about what people think of you. Charlie starts crying and thanks his brother. Donald asks for what, and before he can answer, Susan and LaRoche zero in on where they are, since they've been having a long, in-depth, heart-to-heart conversation within earshot. Goes right back to that maudlin. Night turns into day, and the brothers decide to head for their rental car since the van seems to be gone, but they quickly spot LaRoche sleeping nearby. Susan screams from down the road in the van to try and wake up John, and he shoots Donald in the shoulder accidentally while getting up. Which is funny. That also feels like a Donald thing because the gun wasn't even pointed at them, but
like
he somehow shot him in the
shoulder.
Yeah, and like we see it happens off camera, so like it's just Charlie's reaction to Donald getting shot. Charlie gets Donald in the car and they speed down the road. Donald says, I can't believe I got shot. Isn't that fucked up? While laughing. And then Charlie like holds back a laugh while saying, shut up, stop laughing. Then the car slams into a park ranger's truck at full speed, sending Donald through the window. So the park ranger was coming to check like the area. Why is he driving so fucking fast in that direction? They drive into each other so fast. And I don't remember Charlie ever like putting on a seatbelt, but he's fine. I guess because there was a airbag.
He probably,
there.
because he got the airbag where Donald's airbag didn't deploy.
Donald did not have an airbag. Charlie comes to and sees his brother's lifeless body on the ground. He tells Donald he'll be okay, but Donald closes his eyes and passes out. Charlie tries to sing his brother Happy Together to revive him, which works. Donald slowly opens his eyes, gives his brother a big smile, and then dies. Charlie screams for help, but Susan shows up and is shocked at the scene of Donald and the park ranger dead on the ground. Charlie runs for it, but Susan and John give chase. They quickly catch up to him. It's funny, like you can see the fat like really going up and down in that shot.
Yeah.
They quickly catch up to him, and LaRoche checks to see if Susan still wants Charlie dead, and she gives him a really like sad, pained look. Then LaRoche loads his rifle and, while nearly hyperventilating, raises the gun to kill him. But Charlie is saved in the nick of time when LaRoche is drug under the water by an alligator. I love that that moment because that feels so real. Like he doesn't want to kill anybody, and he's like being forced to by this woman that he loves, and it's just fucking like hyperventilating. It's like, I don't want to do this, but I got to.
I'm not a murderer, mister.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I have to do this too. I'm not a killer.
Susan screams as LaRoche is death rolled by the alligator, and by the time she gets to him, he's already dead. Charlie scrambles to a nearby bank, and Susan yells, "Oh God, you fat piece of shit! He's dead, you loser!" Then Charlie finally gets some balls and yells back,
Fuck you, lady! You're just a lonely, old, desperate, pathetic drug addict!
She sobs over LaRoche, and she says she just wants her life to go back to before it got all fucked up, and she wants to be a baby again. She wants to be new. Which I'm not... I feel like there was some symbolism that might have gone over my head there, like what exactly she meant by that, and if it tied back into the plants, like rebirth and renewal, because like the plants live, then they die, then they regrow, you know. Charlie just stares at her and thinks to himself, I can't believe I jacked off to this bitch. The cops show up and Charlie is given a blanket, which is exactly something Donald's character would have added. He's probably watched that in all those action movies. It's so funny. Charlie's given a phone where he calls his mom to tell her her son is dead while sobbing. It's like, it's funny because it's like Charlie and Donald mixing so well in these scenes. Like there's the elements of Donald's writing and the elements of Charlie's writing. So meta. We cut to a short time later where Charles is home eating alone, sitting across from an empty chair. And he looks over and sees Donald's empty like writing area. Next, we see Charlie putting the finishing touches on his screenplay, including the line Donald said about how you are what you love, not who loves you, but with the added context of Charlie saying he tries to thank his brother, but he can't put it into words. We see Charlie and Amelia sitting outside of a restaurant. Must be a short time later after that because like his face is healed and all that kind of stuff. We see that his face is still messed up in the previous scene of him sitting at home alone, but then he's back to normal. She asks him how he is, and he says okay, and then he tells her that he misses her a lot. She asks how the script is coming along, and he says he's almost finished. That's the most important part after what's happened, which it's almost like it's just been the death of this thing that he imagined this whole time. Like his alter ego is dead, and now he can be who he wants to actually be. He can embrace those parts of Donald that were missing, but he's still Charlie at the same time. He asks how she is, and it's clear that her new relationship with Peter Griffin is going great. She tells Charlie they went to Prague, and then tells him all about it with the puppet theater and the cathedral made out of bones and all that kind of shit. And she says that she thought about him while she was there, and he stares at her for a long beat before giving her a kiss. She asks why he's doing this now since she's with someone, and he says that he loves her. Finally gets the stones at the very end of the movie to try and make a move on her, even though she's already with somebody else. Though, I mean, it's Peter Griffin. I mean, he can not do that. He wrote Being John Malkovich. Come on. She says she has to go, and she walks away. And then she turns around and says, I love you too, you know. They smile at each other, and then she leaves. So you kind of wonder, like, if they got together at the end. In the parking garage, we hear Charlie narrating that he knows how to finish the script. He says, it ends with Kaufman driving home after his lunch with Amelia, thinking he knows how to finish his script. And he says, shit, that's voiceover. McKee would not approve. How else am I going to show his thoughts? I don't know. Well, who cares what McKee says? It feels right. Conclusive. I wonder who's going to play me. Someone not too fat. I like that Gerard Depardieu. But can he not do the accent? Anyway, it's done. And that's something. So Kaufman drives off from his encounter with Amelia, filled for the first time with hope. I like this. This is good. We see Charlie drive away, and Happy Together plays while some flowers raise into the frame, and we watch them adapt to the elements in time-lapse over the course of a few days in Los Angeles. The end. Wait, P.S. There's a dedication at the very end of the film to Donald. Quick fact, the credits include Donald Kaufman as the co-writer. He's also a featured character in the movie, and the movie is dedicated in loving memory of Donald at the end of the credits. But Donald is just a fictional character. He's not real. Completely made up. A paragraph from Donald Kaufman's script, The Three, is shown at the very end of the film in the closing credits. It reads, "We're all one thing, Lieutenant. That's what I've come to realize. Like cells in a body, except we can't see the body. The way fish can't see the ocean. And so we envy each other, hurt each other, hate each other. How silly is that? A heart cell hating a lung cell." And then it's credited to Cassie from The Three, which is Cassie is also the detective and the killer, of course.
Yeah.
There's actually a theory that claims that this paragraph reveals the hidden meaning of the film, that Donald, Susan, and Charlie are the three, figuratively or literally. The actual end. I don't know exactly what that even means. Like, so
Yeah.
Susan Orlean and Donald and Charlie are all parts of Charlie's psyche through the entire movie. Right.
Yeah.
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 So that makes sense. I can see it.
Yeah. Yeah. If you couldn't tell from me gushing over his writing during the show, I love me some Charlie Kaufman. Personally, I think the guy is a genius, and there's definitely no one like him working today. Thankfully, our friends over at Loved Again Media have a huge selection of his work, including masterpieces like Adaptation, Being John Malkovich, and Endless Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And if you're more like Donald and you're in the mood for something a little less cerebral, Loved Again Media has an incredible library of movies starting at just $4 for DVDs and $5 for Blu-rays and TV box sets, so you're sure to find something you're into. Head over to Loved Again Media and get an extra 15% off their already super low prices by entering our promo code 1CAGE at checkout.
We have a Coppola questions before we move on.
Coppola questions. I didn't really write any questions down because I feel like everything is explainable. Throughout. But I guess the real big question is, like, what do you think Donald really represents to the actual Charlie Kaufman? Just the person he wants to be. The person he wishes he was, or the other half of his personality.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I don't think it's of someone he wants to be. I think it's somebody he acknowledges he is in one way or another, but tries not to be. Like, it's, he knows how to write a successful movie script. It's formulaic. He can just follow the writing prompts or whatever. I mean, at some point in his writing life, maybe he did all of that. He went to seminars or read books about it, and so that's why he kind of looks on it with contempt. Like, I'm beyond that. I can write, the real challenge is taking a story that doesn't have a structure that turns into a movie that's supposed to be realistic and turn that into something profound.
Which is true. I mean, it's amazing that he was able to. Like, this movie came out of The Orchid Thief. Like, it's fucking insane.
And I think it's just Donald is that version of himself that he slowly
holds back. I think.
But then he realizes he can't. It's part of him. It's intrinsic. He has to rely on it, and there's nothing negative about it. He just he learns from that aspect of himself, and then eventually he kills him off in the script because it's sort of he's absorbed it back into himself and gotten over his writer's block and his. I don't know if he's fully gotten over it, but his inferiority complex, his neurosis, whatever you want to call it, he learns to overcome it by embracing that aspects of Donald. and turning in a successful script.
I remember the first time I watched it, I really hated that Donald died because he's so likable and lovable. And it's like, why'd you have to kill him at the end? Like, I didn't like that. But then when you take a critical eye to it, it makes perfect sense. It's like, this is another part of Donald or of Charlie. And like, he has to kill it off in order for him to grow and to become the person he actually wants to be.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what McKee was saying, is like, you have to be able to find those things in yourself.
Yeah. And it also adds emotional weight and drama and stuff that you would need in a third act finale.
Yes.
to make a movie. So it's like, it's that meta commentary on films again. Like, he's not a real person. We know that even
but
watching the movie, but you feel
for
like he dies and you feel really bad for Charlie and stuff. But it's like, I guess to some extent, nobody's real in any film. It's all made up, but we buy into that fiction and trick ourselves. So why not? One fake person's death adding emotional weight is no different from another film. So the fact that it's in this movie just helps reinforce those ideas that film structure is there for a reason. And if you wow them with a third act, you have a successful film. Everybody will forgive the other stuff. And each of the acts of this movie all feel different. And you can feel pretty flawed, I think, at the start if you don't really know what you're watching. But things kind of coalesce as it goes along. And then you get wowed in the third act. And it's like, everything is one cohesive story. And it's great.
Yeah. And it does have a real structure to it.
Yeah.
Like, if you really dial it back and like look at it from 10,000 feet, it really does have the 3-act structure of a regular conventional movie.
But just imagine the process of that, like going from trying to adapt this book to interjecting yourself into it and then struggling with trying to adapt the book, struggling to create structure, interjecting yourself, and then somehow using that to create the structure of a completely different story. That's a story within a story within a story that ends up being the movie that you end up watching.
Yeah.
You can't, there's no delineation between the fictional story, the actual movie that we end up watching, Charlie Kaufman, the character, Charlie Kaufman, the actual writer. It all just is an Ouroboros that eats itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
For infinity. But somehow works. It's its own package. It's
brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My only question was, what's up with the quote at the end of the credits? Why was there a quote from a character we don't even really know, Cassie, from a fictional movie written by a fictional character?
Yeah.
In it, like, and I thought maybe it was just as a joke, as a dedication to Donald being, a dead fictional character. Let's toss out one of his quotes that is profound if you think about it. It's laced with the stupid. Yeah. It's like him talking to a lieutenant at the police force or whatever, but there's hidden wisdom in it if you stop and think about it. And it works both from the idea that this is a guy with multiple personalities playing 3 different characters, but also you can look at it as we're all cells in the being of human existence on the earth. We're all forming one organism, but we don't know it and we don't act like it.
And it goes back to the adaptation theme of like, we all just came from the same thing. Like we're all part of the same thing. And we all,
there's the clip of Darwin where he talks about there's one, I have to, what does he say? I have to conclude that there's one specific organism that all other organisms are descended from. And we're all just repeating patterns of that. So I think that got lost in our breakdown, but it was a thing in there.
Yeah, as at a certain point, you just have to gloss over certain things because it's like.
But now thinking about it, that quote didn't really seem to make a lot of sense. But now it does tie into that theme if you look at it and dig a little deeper. And it's a perfect coalescence of Donald and Charlie. It's profound with kind of stupid. It seems like hacky writing that you would see in a cliche dialogue in a cop movie or whatever. But he has to be both. He has to use both to be a successful screenwriter. Yeah, like he has to embrace the sides of Donald and the sides of Charlie.
It's kind of genius. I mean, like you have to assume that Charlie Kaufman was the one who was like, "Please put this at the very end of the credits," and Spike Jonze was smart enough to be like, okay, well, this ties into everything else. And and it's like a thing that 99% of the people who watch this are going to miss. Yeah. So it's fucking, So many layers to this movie. It's insane.
I think, like you said, everything is pretty much explained.
Yeah. Really well tied together. I mean, it's hard to even there are things that you could question, more like pondering, like, do you think that Charlie ended up with Amelia at the end? And like eventually they came together, but I think he'll fuck that up just like he fucks up everything else.
I also think that would muddy the message that he got from Donald. Which is
exactly.
Doesn't matter what happens as long as you loved the person that defines you.
Yes,
So
exactly.
you should be happy with that, I guess.
It would cheapen that moment if they did end up getting.
Mm-hmm. She does confirm that she loves him back, but she's kind of moved on with her life.
They both adapted.
Yes. It's fun. Like, even that, like, just the name of the movie works on so many different levels of this film. Like, it's incredible. Anyways, let's stop jerking off the movie.
It's time for the trackers.
Nigel, do you want to hit us with the Cage curse tracker? We had two characters to track.
Yeah, I tracked them separately, but also I'll give the total.
I was really hoping that you would track them separately.
Yeah, so for Charlie, we had one goddamn and one damn. 6 fucks. I kind of screwed up my tally marking, so it kind of confusing. 1 hell, 3 ass, 1 asshole, 1 bullshit, 1 god, and 2 shits. So Charlie had the bulk of it. For Donald, he only had 2 fucks, 2 gods, and 1 asshole, which was the, I'm not an asshole, or whatever he says.
I think everybody's just got 1 asshole, though.
Yeah, that's true. So grand total across both characters is 1 hell, 1 damn, 1 goddamn, 2 shit, 3 ass, 2 asshole, 1 bullshit, 3 god, and 8 fucks for a total of 22 curses in this one from
pretty varied.
Both Nick Cage characters.
Good writing, not just relying on nothing but fucks.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. Not to name any names of any movies we recently watched.
Yeah. Christmas Carol.
So,
right?
Yeah, sure. So I don't have
hilarious.
All right, grand total is 694 curses across all of our films so far.
42 movies at this point, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So we didn't count. We didn't count Industrial Symphony, Best of Times, or Dark.
Yeah, I'm tracking 42 in here. All right, so a total of all the films this season, 111 curses, 40 of which came from mom and dad. Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah, there were actually a few light. The Old Way only had 1. National Treasure, Book of Secrets, Christmas Carol, and Renfield all had 0. So that kind of weighed it a little bit on the lighter side. But yeah, 111.
That's funny if you think about 3. Like over 500 and some in the first 2 seasons, and then 111 this season. Next season will be super light because we're going to do a lot of the animated films. Though I don't know, maybe fucking Superman and Teen Titans is just cussing his ass off.
He's just snapping necks left and right.
All right, run time. This was 115 minutes, which is closer to the top, but not like nearly as long as like National Treasure or Face Off, The Rock. Those are all pretty long. This one somewhere near the middle, but closer to the top. Nudity. We had this was an R-rated film, and there was a vagina. Been a while since we've had one of those. That was when the baby was born. Literally looking directly at a vagina, which most of the other 2 have been just full frontals. Like when we just see, like I think one was on the computer, and then one was a character who was full frontal. I can't remember what. It all blurs together. All the vaginas blur together at this point.
Only in Japanese. I'm not going near that. I'm staying away from that one.
There were 13 breasts because I had to count the pictures that were on the porn website and the wall. I don't know if I was like 100% accurate on that. There was also the one at the beginning with the woman giving birth. And then, of course, there was, what's her name? Caroline, the waitress.
She didn't have a name, I don't think, in the movie.
Played by
Judy Greer.
Yeah, Judy Greer. And then there was LaRoche's male ass. We're back ahead on male ass to female. 9 males to 7 females. Grand total of 77 breasts across 42 films, 3 penises and 3 vaginas. I feel weirder and weirder about tracking the nudity as we go along.
Yeah.
At the same time, I feel like, I don't know. It's something we should be tracking.
Yeah.
State and country tracker, we went to California, New York, and Florida. That is actually the first time we've gone to Florida, which, try and avoid Florida like the plague if you can, especially these days. But that is the 10th time we've been in California and the 9th time we've been in New York. Far outweighing all the other states. Louisiana, surprisingly, is somewhat close third with 5 times that we've been there. That brings our grand total up to 25 total states. So we have officially hit half of the 50 states, which is pretty crazy. Actually, I don't know. I don't know if we're ever going to hit all 50, and I actually am surprised that we got to 25 this quickly.
Yeah.
42 films. Half of the states are already checked off. We've also been to 20 different countries now. We didn't go outside of the U.S. in this film, but mostly because we didn't leave the country once in season 1. So between season 2 and 3, we've been to 20 different countries. Budget versus gross is a $19 million budget with $32.8 million gross. So did okay. This is not the kind of movie you would expect people to just line up to go to the cinema to watch, which probably explains the C score. Really, I mean, people are just looking to have a good time, and this is can potentially not be a good time. Good time for us, but for the average mouth breather out there, probably not gonna enjoy this one.
An above average mouth breather.
We are above average mouth breathers. That should be the tagline on our show.
Yeah, that should be their tagline.
That brings our grand total up to $1.298.5 billion on the budget, $2.902.8 billion gross. So we are nearly 3 times the budget, and we have almost hit $3 billion as far as how much Nicolas Cage films have grossed across 42 films. $3 billion. 42 films. And a lot of the films that we've talked about were just direct to streaming or just, crap movies that would never get a real theatrical run anyway. Like Deadfall definitely didn't make back its budget. There were so many. If you look at our top grossing films, the bottom, 10 all made under $1 billion. 15 movies made under $1 billion. Or under $1 million, I mean. This movie, 32.8, is actually kind of the same as Runtime, where it's like near the top, but not like way close to the top. This is sandwiched between Guarding Tess and The Wicker Man. Outdid Guarding Tess, so there's that. But can't match that Wicker Man money. That's the theatrical draw.
It's the bees.
Ratings, this is our 23rd R-rated film. I guess I could have predicted that when we started out, that R's were going to win, and now it seems like they're going to win handily. So, is that right? Handily?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm above average mouth breather, but not much above. All right, that leads us over to the kill tracker.
All right. So, do we count LaRoche has a
I don't think
death?
so.
Nah, that was a Deus Ex Machina, so it didn't count.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of was wondering what you guys would think on that one. I had a feeling we'd all align that it doesn't count, even though it was scripted by Kaufman. But
Yeah.
so that's zero kills in this film. So we're still sitting at 201 for the total. And one death because, well, he played Donald as well. So Donald died.
Yeah.
Which brings us to 13 total deaths.
The first time that's ever happened where he's died and lived.
And lived.
Without a resurrection.
Without a resurrection.
Without a resurrection. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where does this masterpiece fall? Let's rank this film on the Cageometer.
Okay, that leads us over to the final rating of this season. Vince, where does Adaptation from 2002 rate on your Cageometer?
Okay, movie. Gonna give it a 9. It's one of the better films, one of the best films that we've watched in the 3 seasons that we've done. I started falling in love with it more and more as we broke it down and started really diving into the different layers. It's just so good. It's so interesting, so unique, and it's so meta. I just love all the layers and like really breaking it down with you guys and diving into everything and talking it out. Just I love how well written it was and how tightly written it was too. Like you said, we could ask questions, but they wouldn't really be picking apart plot holes or issues that we had with the story. And I thought he landed the ending really well, with a really beautiful message. So yeah, I gotta give it a 9. Cage, same. I'm gonna give him a 9. I thought he nailed both roles perfectly. We talked about it before, so I won't really talk too much about it, but his physicality that he brought to both characters and using that as a way to separate his performances just blew me away. It was I haven't seen a lot of actors that have played 2 characters do it as well as he has. I really did believe that they were 2 different people, and his performance and his mannerisms and even his voice were different for each guy. And I really love that he respected Spike Jonze enough not to go off the deep end and go cagey, and that he kept it nice and tight and really played it more to what Charlie Kaufman, how Spike Jonze wanted him to portray Charlie Kaufman. And yeah, I mean, this season we've had a lot of bad performances, a lot of bad movies. So this was refreshing to see him just crush it and just knock it out of the park. So 9 for both movie, 9 for Cage as well. So
all right, Nigel, where does Adaptation rate on your Cageometer?
I waffle on the rating on it between a 9 or a 10, and I don't know. I want to give it a 10, but I don't know if that's being fair to Pig, because I feel like Pig is a way better movie.
I had this exact same internal debate.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm still going to side on a 10. I'll give it a perfect score because I can't find anything to really critique about it.
Yeah.
The only thing I could really settle on is it's less enjoyable to watch than Pig, which is a weird way to say. Maybe because it's a little bit long, or it's a little disorienting with the way that it's structured as you're watching it. But that makes sense by the end of the film. It makes sense if you rewatch it. It ties everything together perfectly. The performances across every actor was top notch. Like we said, basically everybody involved in this film, top to bottom, has top of their game.
Even Judy Greer as like the waitress.
Yeah.
Like she's in it for a second, and it's like you didn't have to get Judy Greer for that role.
Right.
But you did. You got an amazing actress for this small little bit part. You know?
Yeah. And it's I can see, I don't understand how I got a C, but I kind of do, because it's, if you don't know what you're expecting, I think the movie's better if you don't know what you're expecting, but people going in to see it opening day were probably expecting something. So they probably didn't get what they were expecting, because this movie ends up being a movie about a neurotic writer, about the process of writing that turns into the movie you're watching. It's him write, which is bizarre and off-putting, and it's not structured like a normal movie. So that part's disorienting, I think, to people. But I mean, looking at it as a character study, as a critique on writing, as a critique on Hollywood, well, not even a critique, just as an examination of how the writing process works and how Hollywood movies work. I don't think it's overly cynical. I don't think it's overly critical. It just is. And I think it's what Charlie Kaufman struggled with in the beginning of the movie, where he's like, I'm trying to write a movie that's like real life, like this, but still is something that people are going to want to watch. And you know, the challenge being what he gets ultimately from McKay is that, like, or McKee, whatever his name is, what is it? McKee, yeah, is that there is drama in life. If you think nothing happens in life, you're wrong. And if you can't find something to write about it, then, you know, why are you wasting people's time? And it's like that. Like, there's a profound message to this movie by the end of it, if you look at it from the standpoint of Charlie Kaufman coming to grips with, I don't know exactly what, but there's something to do with passion, with discovering yourself, discovering aspects of yourself that you need, and all of that. I've lost my train of thought trying to coalesce it into something. But the movie. So did Charlie Kaufman, man. Right.
Wait, inject yourself into your review.
But on first glance, it seems like maybe nothing ultimately happens in this, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Even adding a typical Hollywood third act to the movie we're watching as The Orchid Thief, or the story of Charlie Kaufman adapting The Orchid Thief, if you look beyond that, there's still that life lessons he gleaned from what seems like a mundane experience in writing and struggling with it. Yeah. So, and I think you can pull that from this, even if you ignore the surface level stuff, which it's kind of hard to even focus on the surface level because you don't know what the surface level of the movie is. Is it, you know, is it autobiographical? Is it, are we watching part of The Orchid Thief? Are we watching, you can't even treat it like a reliable narration of what happened to Charlie Kaufman, because it sort of becomes the movie that he creates with his brother Donald, who doesn't actually exist. So again, so yeah. That's all a long-winded way to say that I think this movie is brilliant, and we'll give it a perfect score. Cage. Again, this is another performance of Cage that's top tier. There aren't very many of them that we've come across on this level. And like you said, to play it twice, two different versions of, it's almost the same character. I mean, you can call it two different versions of the same character, even on the fact that they're twins. They're really similar because they're twin brothers. But I mean, if you look at it from the fact that they're different parts of Charlie Kaufman's psyche, they're the same person, and he's playing both of them. But again, completely distinct. You can tell which one is talking or on screen or delivering lines or whatever at any given moment in an instant. Yep. You can tell by the way he stands, the way he talks, the way his mannerisms work, the things he says. He plays both of them.
Like when they're both on the phone, like it's so distinctly like that is definitely Donald and this is definitely Charlie. It's like,
and even taking the performance out of it, by the time you get to the third act, I said you can feel the voice of both characters coming through in what you're watching the two characters do. It's crazy. But the way that he's portrayed both characters throughout it, you totally can understand where different aspects of that third act come from in both of those. And it's like, it's so bizarre because it's like the voice of the fictional character is coming through in the fictional third act of this movie that we were watching. And that's a credit to him. So I give him a 10 out of 10 on that as well. It's another, I think I've only done it once, which was with Pig, maybe twice. But yeah, this is another one from my own personal Nick Cage journey. This was the first movie I saw that actually made me realize Nick Cage is a good actor. It can be. It's a little weird that he got there by disregarding everything he thought about acting and just doing what the director was telling him to do. So maybe it's a bit disingenuous to give him all the credit for it, but
I think it also speaks to his genius of like,
he knew when he had to do that.
Yeah, to do that.
Yeah. I mean, this is another character like Rob and Pig where I can't see Nicolas Cage. Thinking back on it, I can only think of Donald and Charlie. I can't think of Nicolas Cage playing Donald or Charlie. Despite the fact that he doesn't go through as much of a physical transfer. Well, I guess he kind of does, but like as Rob, he has the full beard and mannerisms and long hair. He physically looks different than what we're used to seeing in Nicolas Cage, which is less so in this. He's still clean shaven. He's got the curly hair, balding, fat suit stuff, but it's still clearly a Nicolas Cage face. But even despite that, I can't picture this as Nicolas Cage playing either of those characters. It's just those two characters. So yeah, it's a masterful performance.
Mm-hmm.
Twice.
Doubled up on the masterful.
Yeah.
All right. On my Cageometer, I've been waffling for like 2 weeks on this, whether to give it a 9 or a 10, because it is confusing and hard to follow at the beginning, but then it all makes sense as to why it's confusing and hard to follow. Like it's written intentionally for that. Okay, I think I'm going to give it a 10. I think it's one of the most brilliant movies I've ever seen. It's just so like, there are so many layers to this movie. Like I said, I feel like you could teach a college class just about this movie. Like it's such a masterstroke of writing. And it's something that in less capable hands of a team of filmmakers, like the director, the cinematographer, all of that, makeup even, like it could have fallen apart, like everything. Like it's such a crazy thing and takes such like huge balls to like even like, I'm just going to write this thing because this is what's coming out of my head and I'm just going to deliver it. And it's like, what a fucking like, I mean, his career could have been completely ruined at that point. And, you know, he had only made Being John Malkovich. And that was it. And so he was taking a huge gamble delivering this thing because they were expecting The Orchid Thief. And this is what they got. And I think it's a credit to Spike Jonze especially and the people who eventually okayed this thing. Apparently this was in edit bay for like 6 months. It was one of the longest edits ever in the history. I forget which studio did this, but they said it was like the second longest edit that they've ever gone through. Was it?
I think it was Warner.
But fucking what they've delivered. I mean, you know, this could have fallen apart in editing, could have fallen apart with the directing style, could have fallen apart with everything. The actors, you know, even one character was off their game in this. It could have all fallen apart, but it's just such a fucking masterfully put together film. And the writing, directing, the music, even cinematography, everything about this is just brilliant and so well done. I feel like, you know, Pig is a 10 for different reasons than this. This is equally a 10, and I feel like I couldn't give it a 9 just because I feel like everything just ties together. Like I said, I couldn't even like really come up with questions at the end, which is unheard of. I remember like The Rock, I wrote like 47 questions down, you know, like because that's The Rock, but like it just shows you the difference between a great movie and a not so great movie. Both enjoyable for different reasons. But you know, one was written by Donald and one was written by Charlie. As far as Cage, I never waffled on this. 10 out of 10. Oh my God, he's so fucking great in this movie. I think this was the movie that really made me realize what an incredible actor Nick Cage is. And like I said, it's just such a disservice to him to have not given him Best Actor for this. You know, to give Chris Cooper, Meryl Streep, and Nick Cage Oscar nominations, like that's incredible. Like your three principal like main characters all got nominated for an Oscar. It just speaks to all of their performances, all of the cast and crew behind the scenes. And Cage especially, like this movie falls apart if those two characters aren't distinctly different from each other. And they really are. Like you said, they just disappears. Like you don't even think of Cage, which is amazing because like you said, it's like, it's obviously Nick Cage, but it's not. It's like, and Donald and Charlie are very different people. Like I believe it to be two different people. It's unbelievable. It's a masterstroke performance by him. And like I said, just top to bottom, this movie It's a pedigree of excellence. Everybody in this movie, fucking Brian Cox showing up as Robert McKee did not have to be there, but he's fucking incredible. And he just crushes it in his couple moments that he's on screen. And yeah, I love this movie. And I think, I'll probably only ever give out like 2 or 3 10s. And I feel like it's very deserved, both for the movie and for Cage.
Here it is, the moment you've all been waiting for. These are the cagiest moments of the film.
It's like I don't want to cram in sex or guns or car chases, or characters, learning profound life lessons or growing or coming to like each other or overcoming obstacles to succeed in the end. It's the book isn't like that, and life isn't like that. It just isn't. Buddy, just as soon as I explain something to you. Okay. Anybody who says he's got the answer is going to attract desperate people, be it in the world of religion. I just need to lie down while you explain this to me. Sorry, I apologize. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. Okay, go. There are no rules, Donald. And anybody who says there are is just, not rules. Principles. What? You want to hear my pitch? Go away, goddammit. The script I'm starting, it's about flowers. Oh. Nobody's ever done a movie about flowers before. So there are no guidelines. What about Flowers for Algernon? Well, that's not about flowers. Oh, okay. And it's not a movie. Sorry, I never saw it. Here's the twist. We find out that the killer really suffers from multiple personality disorder, right? See, he's actually really the cop and the girl. All of them are him. Isn't that fucked up? There's no way to write this. Did you consider that? I mean, how could you have somebody held prisoner in a basement and working in a police station at the same time? Trick photography. Okay, that's not what I'm asking. You coming? No, man. I'm gonna stay at Caroline's tonight. A little push in the bush. You're such a... I'm putting in a chase sequence. So the killer flees on horseback with the girl, the cops after them on a motorcycle. And it's like a battle between motors and horses, like technology versus horse. Caroline has this great tattoo of a snake swallowing its own tail. And Ouroboros. I don't know what that means. The snake, it's called Ouroboros. I don't think so. But anyway, it's cool for my killer to have this modus operandi because at the end, when he forces the woman who's really him to eat herself, he's also eating himself to death. I'm Ouroboros. I don't know what that word means. I've written myself into my screenplay. That's kind of weird, huh?
That's it for this season of One Cage at a Time. Season 3. We're done. We made it through another big-ass batch of Cage performances. Some were good, some not so good. But all were memorable. Even Arsenal, I guess. Yeah. was memorable. How about that? If you watch the show, you know that we like to finish each season with a tradition that was started by young Nicolas Coppola's father, August. And when I say young, I mean he was 9 years old when this happens. This feels like child abuse, but his dad brought home the succulent meal of champagne and Kentucky Fried Chicken. I just love the combo of those two things so much. It's exactly Nick Cage, Yeah. It's like a little trashy, but a little classy. Also very classy and refined.
A little trashy, a little classy.
Now he celebrates the wrapping of every single film that he does with this meal. So over 100 times now, Nick Cage is celebrated by eating KFC and drinking champagne. I gotta wonder if he buys the super expensive champagne, but then buys the fucking $20 bucket of chicken.
Yeah.
Maybe he goes to some high-end restaurant and has fried chicken or something. Right. But I'm sure. I hope it's still KFC, dude.
Does his uncle have a sparkling wine from his vineyard?
I think so. That. I think he does, actually.
He probably uses that, maybe.
So we honor August Coppola and Nicolas Cage by doing the exact same at the end of every season. I'm going to try and pop this cork without killing myself, breaking anything.
Spilling all over the computer.
Yes, spilling it everywhere. Up here. Separate the bottle from the horse.
That's a different movie.
There we go.
Hey.
All right. For some champagne.
Some
As
champagne.
Christopher Walken would say. Some champagne. Oh my God. So good. Oh, so delicious. Nectar of the gods. All right, this season, I'm going to toast like I have the first 2 seasons. First, to Nigel, who is a mere, month away from having your second child?
Yes. Yeah.
Right on. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I don't know how you do it even with one, but to Vince for doing the heavy lifting of capturing all the screenshots for the show, running our social media pages, contacting sponsors. It does all the intangible stuff that really actually makes the show go. To Nicolas Kim Coppola himself for continuing to pump out sometimes incredible work, being a goddamn inspiration both on and off the screen. The man we wish we all could be. To our significant others who have to deal with us constantly rambling on incessantly about how much we loved Nick Cage. And also specifically to my wife, and I guess myself, who just closed on our first home.
Congrats.
What a season. Cheers.
Cheers.
Somebody has to eat some chicken just for us to. I'll open this bucket later.
A lot of chicken.
This will be the very last time that I'm in this space for a show. So nobody will have to look at my garbage and Sheena's crap anymore. Stuff in the background. Hopefully I can create something cool in my new space, but it is kind of bittersweet. Like I'm going to miss this setup, but it will be so nice to have a house finally. Before we go, we figured we'd continue a tradition of assembling some of our favorite Cagiest moments from this year's batch of films. It's kind of amazing when you actually look back on all of the Cagey moments and assemble them together. But here they are. In no particular order, our favorite Cagey moments from season 3.
Those toenails about dry yet, sweetheart? We got some dancing to do.
Guess what? When I get home, I'm gonna make you those happy face pancakes that you like so much, okay? I'm saying that maybe there needs to be a fucking grown-up zone and a fucking kid zone! The things you've seen on the internet. Mouth to dildo, dildo to ass, ass to ass, high branch, anal beads.
What do you faggots want?
What does she want? Chocolate? Some kind of goddamn fruit drink or something? What do we look like, waiters? Are we a bunch of waiters? We want to be down there!
Lifeboat drill. We're supposed to put on our jackets.
Lifeboat drill. Jolly.
You remember last summer when the parson's daughter died? You remember how his wife cried? Wah, wah.
Wah, wah.
A little louder. Wah, wah. My baby, my baby.
Wah, wah. My baby, my baby.
I'll have to do. Keep it up.
You could have handled it differently.
What do you say we cut the chit-chat a-hole?
Fuck you! There's a madman in there with his hand on a button!
I'm the real victim here!
The alarm will have triggered by now. We gotta go.
Just want to see if I can get a little gold out of it.
It's urgent.
How, in the name of Zeus's butthole, did you get out of your cell?
Junkie is trash! You're feeding me trash!
And I remember she looked back over her shoulder at me and said, I won't suck you. Don't ask me to suck you.
An immortal, insatiable, all-powerful being. Please, turn around. Turn around? What, are you gonna fuck me first? This isn't happening.
You don't have to answer it.
This isn't happening!
No, just...
You filthy piece of white trash. Your motherfucking mother should open the door! And motherfuckers, you're going to open this motherfucking door! I'm gonna report you! No, you won't! You won't report me, because I charge you with stealing for the fucking army! You got away, but I got caught. I was 17! Saws. Oh.
It's the wrong time! It's the wrong place! I'm wrong again! Wrong about us! Wrong about Thomas Gates! Wrong that you'd like the Queen Anne chair!
Going to detain a blighter for enjoying his whiskey? It's all right, that's enough, sir.
Beggars and mash. Sir? Bubbles and squeak. What? Smoked eel pie. Sir? Hi, guys!
He is a driver in the employ of the Secret Service. I can't do anything about the cook and the nurse. No, they work for you. But this guy works for us, and he's gone!
Oh, yeah! You put your right foot in, you take your right foot out, you do the hokey pokey, and you fucking work it all out! You hear about that little boy in Jackson? Yeah, his genius parents poured Drano an old soda pop bottle, and the boy found it, drank it, guess what happened to him? Burned his esophagus.
Are you happy or are you gonna fuck me up?
That's it for this episode of One Cage at a Time. As always, be sure to drop us an email at onecagepodcast@gmail.com to let us know if we missed anything, or hit us up with suggestions to improve the show, comments, compliments, or simply to gush about the legend that is Nicolas Cage. Next season, whenever that happens, we're going to be kicking things off with Francis Ford Coppola's reason to no longer cast his nephew in films, the classic 1986 fantasy comedy drama, Peggy Sue Got Married. Nick plays a big-toothed, goofy-voiced weirdo opposite Kathleen Turner, who is given a chance to go back to her senior year of high school in the 60s after attending her 25-year reunion to see if she falls back in love with her cheating husband all over again. I don't remember that movie at all.
I don't know.
It'll be a treat to watch it again. It's been a long time. I just remember Cage talking like an idiot the whole movie, which was all his idea, and he refused to not do it.
God, I can't imagine how fucking annoying that would be.
The guy who did The Godfather and Apocalypse Now has got to deal with his fucking nephew going, hey,
my nephew would kick you off this fucking movie.
Oh, definitely would have, probably.
Oh, yeah, he would have shaken it if it was his nephew.
Yeah. But, you know, I think that was like one of the things that I think gave Cage confidence to do his weird character-driven characters, you know, that he's done over the years, was just... Well, I got away with it, and Peggy Sue got married.
Just like Marlon Brando. He was able to stand up to Coppola and do whatever the fuck he wanted.
That's true. It's true. I mean, it was a nightmare working with Brando on The Godfather, but he still cast him again in...
Right. It was Apocalypse Now that he kind of...
Yeah, that's when he really alienated
asshole.
him.
Yeah. But it was like, oh, what are you going to do? It's Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
True. Try and find another guy like that. Anyways, make sure to check it out wherever fine films are sold or on your streaming service of choice. Until then, we'll say goodbye the way we do each and every episode with our Nicolas Cage quote of the film. Cheers.
Cheers.
can love whoever I want. She thought you were pathetic. That was her business, not mine. You are what you love, not what loves you.
Thanks for listening to One Cage at a Time. Visit us online at onecageatatime.com or follow us on the social media platform of your choice for more Nicolas Cage goodness. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you really like the show, become a member of our Patreon where you can download unedited and ad-free episodes, as well as listen to our follow-up show, Back Into the Cage, where we re-examine each movie to discuss what we missed the first time around, answer listener questions, and wax poetic about the man, the myth, the legend that is Nicolas Cage.
My leg hurts. I wonder if it's cancer. There's a bump. I'm starting to sweat. Stop sweating. I've got to stop sweating. Can she see it dripping down my forehead? Oh, she looked at my hairline. She thinks I'm bald.
We think you're great.
Oh, wow. Thanks. That's nice to hear.